Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is part 1 of our story. If you like this what if story and want to see part 2, let me know in the comments below. Before we start, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends. Also, check the description for more great content and my playlist. This story was posted by 𝗧𝗵𝗲 on Wattpad. Now, let's start. Prologue. Crescent, you okay? 239, I wondered, turning to lazily look at my boyfriend next to me. He broken me out of my static stare. 70, you doze off again. Ren pointed out, wrapping his arm around me and pulling me into his side. I sighed and laid down on the grass with my head on his lap. 323, sorry, didn't mean to, I mumbled, watching the clouds float by minimally. There was a sensation that drew joy when watching them float. 7, same dreams keeping you up? He wondered, messing with the that created curtains around the frame of my face. His hands were cold yet reached my decline in temperature. 2, yeah, same annoying ones. I sighed, throwing my arm over my eyes. I don't get it. Why do they keep repeating? And something new shows up almost every time. I ranted, extinguishing my frustration as I spoke. What was new this time? He questioned, looking down at me. He lifted my arm and took a peek at me, giving me a warm smile to calm my stress. I sat up, pulling my hat off, messing with my hair, stuck with my thoughts. I dunno if I should tell you. He stood quiet for a moment. Why? I turned, sitting on my knees. The sunlight danced across his hair, shining upon it. Ren was a jealous type. Though his confidence was as clear as a window, there were smudges in it. 101, a guy showed up. I began, messing with the hem of my skirt. I hadn't been nervous for myself, more toward his reaction. A guy. He repeated, processing the words himself. You could sense the subtle tension. 6, I nodded, feeling the slight raise of jealousy in him for the small mentioning of another male. 5, and what happened? It was hard to say. I hadn't figured out exactly what had happened either. Same as usual. I started, looking at the school as I spoke. It was back when I lived in 𝗵𝘃 with my mom and senior. We were playing with these 2 little boys, and then out of nowhere that disappears and it shows just chaos. But like I mentioned, there was a guy there and we looked at each other. I explained, swaying my head to each side with each word. 34, what did he look like? Ren scooted closer, noticing my voice soften as I finished my sentence. 31, that's the thing. Like he was there and we both saw each other and knew that it was a dream, but I couldn't see his face. It was blurred or blocked off. For most of the time I felt like he thought I was going crazy. The way he'd stare at me told me he did. He chuckled, letting out a deep sigh. You and your strange dreams, but they're not just dreams. I insisted, letting go of the pile of grass that was in my hand. It has to be some kind of sign, right? 12, I think you just read too many books. He joked, standing up and wiping his uniform off. 286, I swear it's not that. Have one of your soul spirit things check and I swear I'm telling the truth. I argued, trying to get him to believe me. Deep inside, I knew there had to be a reason for them. Dreams don't continue like stories or movies. Even after my own research, I couldn't pin down what it had been. Though there was enough trust in my mind to know they weren't for no reason. 34, maybe. Ren complied, reaching his hand down to help me stand back up. He dusted off the pieces of grass on my jacket as I took some out of my high socks. That means never, I mumbled under my breath. He shook his head, rolling his eyes. Typical. Let's just go to class. I'm sure we have training to focus on or something. He said, grabbing my hand and kissing my forehead under the visor. 36, what's the point? I'm moving back anyway, so it won't be like my last days here matter. I shrugged, lacing my fingers with his. That's because you're going UA now and leaving the rest of us Shiketsu people behind. He mentioned, eyeing me from the corner of his eye. 189, you act like I wanted my mom to be moved to a new location for her job. I laughed, opening the door into the school. UA is still the same as here. I'm just teasing you. I'll miss you though. So will EMI. He stopped in the hall outside the door of our class. The bell hadn't rung, so we had a few moments to talk more. 78 please. Like that girl would miss me. There was an eye roll after that sentence. Others were nervous of me. 𝗵𝗃 was one of the other people who'd use me as their sense of company. Mutual it had been though, since she'd been the same for me. Too, she will. We all will. He trailed off. I pulled his hat down, noticing the fall in his happiness. He pushed it back up, looking into my eyes. Don't worry. I'll come by and visit. It'll be like I never even left. I smiled, tapping the tip of his nose. Who knows, maybe I'll have a custom life-size balloon or something of me that you can take around with you. I joked, almost seriously considering the idea. 45, that would be terrifying. He laughed, opening the door as the bell rang. 2, how about I make it portable? You could deflate it and put it in your backpack. Senior, get your sister to get out of the demon car before I'm late for work. My mom demanded, a strain in her voice from the early morning grogginess that had yet to leave her body. I would if she would stop using her powers to stick herself to it like a DMN glue gun. He argued, pulling my arms with each word causing grunting at the end of them. I'm okay here, I concluded, tightening my grip. My ground was held, no other obstacle in my way that could change my opinion. YON, if you don't get out, you're coming to work with me. My mom announced, her upper body turning from the front seat to the back. So much for holding my ground. Fine. I groaned, pushing my brother away from the door so I could get out. He stumbled back but yet still helped me stand. Took you long enough. Senior scoffed, rolling his eyes at me. The thing was, my brother and I got along great. Today had been the opposite end of that, and the reason fully had been because of how difficult I had been acting. 9, stop arguing. My mom scolded us. You two go already before you're late. Senior, walk your sister to class before going to your own. I'll see you both later after school. She instructed before blowing air kisses. And driving away. 7 quick to go as usual. 1 let's go. He grabbed my arm, giving it a hitch toward him to follow. I fixed my sleeves, examining the area around. Buildings were tall, well-structured and designed, but it was to expect from the top school in the other side of Japan. Expectations had to be made. How are you not the slightest bit nervous? I wondered, distracting myself from fidgeting. Why would I be? He asked, looking at me as I caught up to meet his walking speed. It had been a mirror image of myself, yet male and older. 5, just figure you'd be nervous about how people react over us. Also because we're back in the city Dad last was in. Our dad hadn't been known for the most heroic of actions, nowhere close. His title was a murderer and to our private family, an abuser. 113 no amount of time could repay the damage that had been done. Who cares what people think about us being casters? We're here to focus on hero studies and that's it. He concluded, determined with his affirmations. And yeah, he was. Mom said something about the staff keeping security higher with us around, so chill. 3 I sighed, stopping outside the door labeled 1A. Fine, I guess you're right, I murmured, removing hair from my face. 3 when am I not? I'll see you after school, try not to scare anyone. He teased before flicking my head and walking out the hall to his own building. For I turned to face the door and looked up at it, fidgeting with the buttons on my chest. These uniforms were far from my favorite. 2 reaching for the doorknob, my attention was taken by a glare. 2 it was my bracelet. Specifically one gifted to me by Ren. The windows behind me shined a light on it, glaring it more than usual. 58 I'd always worn it, there never being a time where I'd forgotten to. With this new obligated distance between us, it was the only item to keep us close. My thoughts were interrupted once the bell had rung. Nice one. Looking stupid on the first day. I said to myself, annoyed. I wouldn't be surprised if there were people who looked at me weirdly. Are you going to go in? I have a class to teach. 163 My body jumped, turning to face a man more like a mummy though. His face and arms were completely bandaged, no hint of his face beside his eyes and bit of his nose. 19 I stumbled over my words until I'd rethought what he'd just told me. I'm sorry, I'm actually a new student. Are you the teacher? I asked, unsure if he could hear me through all the bandages. His posture uplifted for a second after I spoke, at the mention that I'd been a new student. Yes, I am. You came at a good time. Let's go in. You could meet the rest of the students. He instructed, gesturing for me to move so the door behind me could be opened. The hecticness that before been muffled by the door was released when the door slid open. Though right as it did, students scrambled to their seats. Morning, class. He greeted nonchalantly. A series of gasps and immediate silence rang in the classroom. 24 Mr. Aizawa, what are you doing here? They all yelled in shock. They didn't take notice of me walking behind him. Mr. Aizawa. I am glad you're okay. One with glasses yelled from near the back of the class. Although I kept my eyes at the ground, I couldn't help but furrow my eyebrows at his comment. Clearly, I had no idea what had happened with the class or him, but the factor of him being okay didn't seem to fit correctly. To have his entire face covered with no hint of it showing must mean he got his SHT rocked. 38 My well-being is irrelevant. What's more important is that your fight isn't over. He began, taking a stand at the podium. He turned to me, making everyone's eyes follow me. Who's that? Who cares? She's a total babe. 350 Quiet down. He demanded at the uproar of sound. We have a change in plans this morning. This is your new classmate, 𝗚𝗚𝗍𝗵𝗲. He turned to me and I lightly swung back and forth between my toes and heels. Introduce yourself. 49 I nodded lightly, taking a step forward. As he mentioned before, my name is 𝗚𝗚𝗍𝗵𝗲. I'm a transfer from Shiketsu Academy. It's nice to be meeting you all. I bowed at the end of my sentence, attempting to make amends with the awkward energy. 11 Great, now that's over. Let's, Mr. Aizawa. A girl in the back with a dark raven ponytail called to him. Excuse my interruption, but I had a concern involving our new student. 165, yes, Yorizu. He mumbled, letting out a deep sigh. Please, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you are related to Ryu Yuma. She questioned, suching her attention onto me. 237 The worry and surprise in the room had risen dramatically. This question seemed to be one that I would never escape. After trial and error, there was never a correct answer for it. No matter how I phrased my words or reorganized them, there was always the same outcome. Yeah, I am, I replied, nodding my head. There wasn't much I could say or do to defend myself. My kind was dangerous. My dad was a villain. There was no making better of the mix that already created terror. 6 Though, I still couldn't believe this was a conversation on the first day. Yoriozu kept a good eye at keeping her professionalism visible. The safety of the students is at full risk here now. We should, 706 That's enough. He cut her off as a noticeable irritation grew. Yuma is here to study and become a hero like the rest of you. Treat her with respect and loyalty as you would with your other peers. If I hear anything similar again, I will not hesitate to remove you from my class, got it? 314 Sir. Good. Now, Yuma, take the seat next to Bakugou. He said, turning around back to his desk, leaving me to figure out which desk that would be. 37 I scolded myself silently once noticing it was the only empty seat in the class. But as I walked over, he looked over at me slightly from the side of his eye. They were a deep red, a color that I hadn't seen so commonly. They were practically burning holes into my skin as I was taking my seat. His hair seemed to hold the most personality as it exploded out in different directions without uniform. 27 Just by the looks of it, he didn't seem like someone I should mess with, but something about him felt so familiar. 33 Back to what I was saying, the UA Sports Festival is about to start, Aizawa announced. Relief swam through each student. Why would you scare us like that? They yelled in frustration. Wait a second. A mustard-colored hair guy interrupted, covering the face of the red-haired one who previously cheered in joy. 56 Is it really such a good idea to hold the sports festival so soon after the villains snuck inside? A girl behind me with headphone jack ears asked. 65 They could attack once we're all in the same place. the guy with the tail added, agreeing with the previous point made. 16 Apparently, the administration thinks this is a good way to show that the threat has been handled and our school is safer than ever. Plus they are beefing up security compared to past years. This event is a huge opportunity for all students at UA. It's not something we can cancel because of a few villains. 7 Just from the context of all of this, I can just assume they were attacked by villains. 5 It would explain 𝗎𝗎𝗎𝗎𝗍𝗍's alerted behavior and the bandages all over Aizawa's face. There was no wrong in asking, right? 8 And hey, I whispered to Bakugou next to me. With his head propped onto his palm, he gave me the side eye, not putting the full effort to turn to me. 11 That same weird feeling came back. What the hell do you want? He growled at me. 1 Calm down, candlestick. I mocked from the aggression he was giving me. I was just wondering, what happened? 77 What did YA think happened? We got attacked by villains, you dumb or something. He just explained. He snapped, rolling his eyes at me. 19 Could have said it nicely, I mumbled under my breath before sitting forward in my seat again. 47 I looked around at the others as they bunched up together and laughed. During this time of the day, lunch to be in specifics, I'd be with Ren. Obviously, there was a distance between us now, so that was out of the question. 8 I was back to square one. My hand reached down into my bag where my journal hid. In there, I kept notes of my days and other things of importance. The only other person who knew of my notes was most obviously Ren. Hey! Someone called, jumping in front of my desk. I'm 𝗧𝗎𝗍𝗵𝗲, nice to meet you. He held out his hand for me to shake. 278 A squished smile appeared on my face as I moved my hand from my cheek to meet his. Nice to meet you, 𝗧𝗍𝗵𝗲. I'm YN, but I think you already know that. I laughed, attempting to brush off my mistake. Are you excited about the sports festival? He asked. I turned in my seat to face him. Yeah, sure. I shrugged. We don't have anything like it at Shiketsu, so it'll be an experience. One must SEK having to transfer here without your friends here. He wondered, leaning into the desk. 23 Well, it's not like I had a ton over there anyway. As embarrassing as it is, I only had one friend and my boyfriend. I explained to him. And I guess my brother, but he's a third year so he's never around me during school. 47 Or, why do all the pretty ones have to be taken? The yellow-haired one whined as he walked over to us. I'm Denki Kaminari, but you could call me your future boyfriend. 368 Bold, but I liked it. Though I couldn't tell if her were attempting to make a joke, so laughing was the solution. It's nice to meet you, Kaminari. 1 YA No, speaking of the sports festival, what is your quirk? Kaminari questioned. He sat in his normal seat. She doesn't have a quirk, dumbass, Bakugou interjected as he walked to his seat from wherever he was before. You extras never listen to SHT around you. 246 Dear Minute. I forgot. Kaminari cried out, slapping his hand to his forehead. 1 Oh yeah, you're a caster, right? Kirishima recalled. 55 But I don't think it's anything special. I basically have a quirk, but I guess the term caster is just more formal. That's cool. Don't casters get chosen to a specific side? Kirishima wondered, bringing his hand to his chin. 3 Yeah. Everyone knows my dad as the villain and assumes that I took after him. Whether it be good for me, I'm both sides just smushed together. I informed them, looking back and forth between them as I spoke. Which? Bakugou mumbled under his breath. I turned my head over my shoulder, glaring at him slightly. 277 Do you have a problem, candlestick? I sighed, turning to face him. 2 Don't listen to him. He's always mad at everything and everyone. Kirishima assured me, placing his hand on my arm. Shut it, shitty hair. Bakugou threatened, sending a cold stare toward him. My gaze was kept on the blonde. There was a resemblance from him that was difficult to pin down. I swear I've seen him before. 44 Do I know you from somewhere? I asked abruptly. Not only did my brain want to rewind that moment and take it back, but it seemed to also take him by surprise. He didn't yell, or scream, or scowl in any way. He seemed to be shocked, almost stunned that I asked. 26 I'm sorry, I said quickly after. Ignore what I just said. He kept the small neutral face until looking in the other direction. Yuma, may I speak with you for a moment? Yorozu asked, walking in front of my desk. 382 sure. I nodded, following her to the back of the classroom where her desk was. I'd just like to apologize. She began, folding her arms against her chest. I didn't think about how my comment could have hurt your feelings. 344 I waved my hand in front of my face, shaking my head. Don't stress it. It happens more times than you think. If I were you, I would have had the same reaction. I'm glad we were able to clear that up. She cheered, smiling down at me. 76 Me too. I smiled. To Momo. Come here and bring Yuma. The pink girl called from where she and the other girl stood. Momo walked ahead as I followed behind her. 135 She was clearly a very professional and hardworking person. Not only did it show in her actions but her emotions were well kept together. Hey, Momo, Yuma. The brown-haired one greeted. I smiled back and bowed my head in response. I remember someone calling her name. I think it may be Ochako, but with my 5-second memory, I could be wrong. You two should train with us. You know, for the sports festival. The pink one offered enthusiastically to us. Her personality was bouncing off the walls. Oh, I forgot to say, I'm Mina. This is Okacho, Zu, and Gyro. 91, it's nice to meet you guys. Please, screw the formalities, call me, Wyan, I greeted, waving my hand at each of them. 22 My statement earlier about having no friends had completely made a 180 now. 34 Like I was saying, we were thinking about training together before the sports festival. She continued. I'd love to go, but I think I'd prefer training on my own, Momo said, politely rejecting. How about you, Wyan? Okacho wondered, spinning her attention to me. 3 This could be an opportunity to see Ren again and train with him as he and I had always done. Then again, I couldn't always rely on him or stick like a magnet. 34 Sure, that sounds fun. I grinned, taking the offer. We continued to talk about the sports festival and what we would expect would happen. I found it surprising how easily I was able to fit in with them. They seemed to be so authentic and true to themselves. It was refreshing to be in a new environment and have a new start here. Maybe moving back wasn't such a horrible thing. Let's do this. Mina yelled as she jumped into the air, aiming her shots at the small boulders Okacho had floated. 1 Release. Ochako called, bringing her fingertips together. The acid shot out of Mina's hand, breaking each one of them. Foreseeing that there was one more left, I took the opportunity to take it. I lifted my palm out, letting the black matter shoot out and break the rock into dust. 27 Whoa, they both sang in complete shock. They turned around and looked at me in awe. How'd you do that? Mina asked, full of excitement. That was cool. Okacho added on. 16 Well, it's just the basic power casters have. I lifted up my hand, showing the black traveling out of it. I can use it in the way I just did or also in a mist form, but that one isn't exactly the easiest or safest to use. 8 That's amazing. Who knew casters were so complex? Mina mumbled, bringing her hand up to her face. Trust me. It's really complex, yet I think it's also stupidly unfair. I thought aloud, stretching my arm across my body. There was distant rumbles of explosions in the background of the occupying noise. Through this training for the sports festival, I got to be acquainted with everyone along with knowing their quirks. The explosions just told me Bakugou was having the time of his life. You guys know the reason why Bakugou always acts like a beach all the time. I wondered as pulled my hair back from my face. Fauna, I'm pretty sure he's always like that. Mina shrugged, warming her hands up against each other. Yeah, that's what Kirishima said, but I find it hard to be true. Then again, I don't care that much. I laughed, looked toward the direction the blast come from. He and Deku sure don't get along, Ochako mentioned as she walked around tapping some of the rubble. That's the kid with the emerald-colored hair, right? I recalled seeing him and her together most of the time. 24 Yep. He and Bakugou are like childhood friends. She explained. 30, that's nice. I wonder what that's like. I commented, kicking a rock around the area. You don't have any childhood friends? Mina questioned, turning to face me. This is way too much to say, but my dad has always been after us, and let's just say the car accident we were in was no coincidence. I don't have much memory of my childhood. 56, that sounds terrible. Ochiko frowned. I shook my head. Seriously, it's fine. As I said, I can't even remember it, so I don't feel any pain or anything. If you ever need anything, we got you, girl. Mina reassured, jumping at me with a hug. 134, yeah. You have us now. Okacho agreed, dropping all the boulders she held up for Mina. I watched the two as they talked about other ways they could use their quirks. I couldn't help but be gravitated toward the explosions that rang in the distance. I'll be right back, I said, waving to them as I left the building. I walked around the dome, heading to the forest that was only a few feet away. The sounds of the explosions grew louder the smaller the distance between us shrunk. Slowly though, he came into view. I stood back against the shadows, blending in with them as my back laid against the wood of a tree. Die! He screamed, sending another hellfire of burst from his palms. There were drops of sweat running down his face, but you could see the satisfaction written all over it. 89, he looked around aimlessly looking for something. I looked with him, also searching. Though it took a few moments to notice the water bottle that was a few meters from me. Using my powers, the black aura grabbed the bottle, floating it toward him. His back had been turned, so I smacked it against his shoulder a few times, causing him to turn. Aggressively, his hand reached up and snatched it. Not even a thank you. I smirked as I walked out from behind the tree. What the hell are you doing here? He grumbled, taking a seat on the ground against a tree. Well, if you forgot dash, I grunted as I sat down across from him at another tree. I'm also in the sports festival and need to train. TCH. That's not what I meant. He rolled his eyes in full annoyance. Fine, then tell me what you meant. I waited, crossing my arms against my chest. What the hell are you doing here, near me? How'd you even find me, you creep? He mumbled, throwing the water bottle aside and standing back up. 37, the loud explosions followed by your yells are not exactly easy to ignore either, you volcano. I mumbled, following his moments. I noticed he was getting ready to practice again. Let me spar with you. Here. He breathed, giving me a funky stare. Why would I want to spar with someone like you? 51, oh come on. I groaned. You know you want to. Just one quick spar and I'll leave you alone. I attempted to convince him, slowly stepping his direction. He rolled his eyes at me and growled under his breath. Fine. One quick spar, but don't expect me to go easy on you, you demon witch. 35, fine by me. I guess I could say the same, candlestick. I smiled, happy about him giving in. 21, not only had I not sparred with anyone else but Senior or Ren, neither of them had a power like Bakugou's. The experience would be different. I accepted that challenge. We distanced ourselves from each other, creating an equal amount of distance. I intentionally wanted to win in the most frustrating way, just to get him ticked off. Of course, another time, I'd let him win. Without any warning before, he blasted a large explosion in my direction. Using the wind surrounding us, I grabbed it between my hands and threw the blast to the side. 22, this is sad. I said don't go easy. I crossed my arms, faking a yawn. 13, shut up. He yelled in frustration. He sent another blast my way as I rolled out of the way. Throwing my hands toward him, the black matter flew in his direction, sending him flying back from the impact. 9, wasting no time, he ran at me with sparks flashing in his hands. Once he was close enough, I decided to mess around a bit. Freeze. 68, the entire area froze, including Bakugou himself. The amount of time I'd be able to hold this wasn't long, so I had to rush. Moving toward him, I swayed the position of his hands, his aim being off of their original target. One tapping his finger and the ground, I hoped the two would magnetize together. Go! The explosion blasted into the air louder than I'd heard it before, and his finger flew to the ground. 2 What the F? You were right in front of me. He screamed, trying to yank his hand away from the ground. I froze time for a moment and changed your aim while bounding your finger to the floor just for the heck of it, I explained while walking around him. 17 Honestly, I'm surprised. You didn't put up much of a fight. I expected a bit more, but we could always train again and maybe I'll let you win. I smirked, bending down to make eye contact with him. Is that all right with you? I whispered. Something flashed in his eyes before immediately being covered with anger. 62 He grunted aggressively, pulling his arm up from where it was previously stuck and throwing me onto the ground. Took me by surprise as no one, not even my brother, could go against my powers. He grabbed my hands, locking them at the top of my head while holding Sparks to my face with his other free hand. 144 Looks like you underestimated me, witch. He smirked, with a certain lust in his eyes from having someone with similar wit against him. 51 You got lucky. I laughed, shaking my head. When our eyes met, I could have swore I saw more than his emotions. 7 He was thinking about something yet I didn't know what. Do you maybe, I dunno, wanna get off of me? I shrugged, pointing out the fact that he was still on me. His face struck with discomfort before quickly getting off. For I lifted myself up and dusted off the dirt from my body. That was fun. We should do that again. I smiled as I readjusting my hair. Next time I won't lose though. Ha! He chuckled, shaking his head. I'm gonna win every time. 15 New message, Ren hey babe. Missed you today. EMI and I are excited to watch you at the sports festival. We'll be cheering you on from afar. I love you. Read at 5:38 p.m. For the next few days, I had been working my butt off. One senior was determined to have both of us train together. We knew the ins and out of each other's abilities, always testing each other to our limits. Putting unexpectancies into our training prepared us for what we could be facing in our individual sports festivals. Though our training was long and lasted days, the festival came quicker than we thought. When walking into the waiting room, there had only been a few people. Hey, Momo, Ochiko. I waved as I walked toward them. One hello, YN. Momo waved as I took the seat next to hers. Hey YN. How are you feeling? You don't even look nervous. Ochiko noted, leaning over the table to get a better look at me. I don't honestly feel nervous. I shrugged, maybe just about the comments that people may say from seeing me here. That's understandable. But their opinions don't matter. We're your friends and we know you. Ochiko smiled, grabbing my hand. 40 Ochiko is right. As someone who has made the mistake of misjudging, I believe they will love you. Momo smiled, placing a hand on my shoulder. 51, we can only hope for the best, right? I smiled, shrugging the topic away. It was better to be optimistic than negative. Most people at this point knew that my brother and I were here. The problem was their reactions. From an objective standpoint, I think fairly clear that I'm stronger than you. 26 Everyone's attention had been stolen, drawn into the two boys who standing off-center to the room. Todoroki's face was stern, much like his tone, while Midoriya looked the opposite. Too poor thing looked like he was going to 𝗧𝗏 himself. 78 Yeah, Midoriya mumbled, his words being as weak as he felt. I expected this out of Bakugou, but maybe Todoroki felt threatened by him also. However, you've got All Might in your corner, helping you out. I'm not here to pry about what's going on between you two. But no, I will beat you. He stated with cold envy in his eyes. I stood up quickly in my chair, feeling slight disturbed anger coming from me. 6 Kirishima also stood up and I followed behind him. As I walked, someone grabbed my wrist and yanked me back. 3 What? I whispered to Bakugou. Let them handle it. He quietly yelled to me. 152 I pulled my wrist back and crossed my arms. Didn't know you were my mom, I mumbled. Even with my small comment, I still listened. 3 What's with all these declarations of war lately? Kaminari asked, turning to face the two boys. Yeah, what's the big deal? Kirishima rested his hand on Todoroki's shoulder. Why are you picking a fight all of a sudden? And right before we get started. Todoroki shoved Kirishima away as I grabbed his arm and pulled him a bit back. He stood by my side, smiling lightly in thanks for me. Grabbing him. 10 We're not here to be each other's friends. Todoroki turned around and started to walk out of the room. Don't forget. This isn't a team effort. 2 Wait a sec, Todoroki, Midoriya muttered, looking down at the ground below him. I don't know what's going through your head or why you'd need to tell me that you'll beat me. And, yeah, of course, you're better than me. In fact, you probably have way more potential than anyone in the hero course. That's why you got in so easily. For to Midoriya, maybe you're being a little ecchi on yourself and us. Kirishima laughed, trying to ease some of the tension that kept building thicker and thicker. No, he's right, you guys. All the other courses they are coming for us with everything they got. We're all gonna have to fight to stand out. And I'll be aiming for the top, too. Midoriya's sudden gain of confidence took all of us back with surprise. 2 Fine. Todoroki glared, looking away. 20 That's right. It's the Hero Course students of Class 1A. 34 That's right. It's the Hero Course students of Class 1A. The stadium was filled top to bottom, not one seat being empty. The audience ranged from pro heroes to families to others who'd been lucky enough to get a seat. There was nothing but excitement radiating from their screaming bodies. As we walked to the stage, I had been between Mina and Ochako. Present MIC sure did hype us up a lot. Mina boasted while looking around at the thousands of heroes sitting in the stands. How could he not? The expectations set on UA students are high. Now is just the time to show them the reason why. I said, smiling as I looked around. 15 kinda makes me nervous, Ochako mumbled to herself. She rubbed her hands up and down her forearms. Her eyes wouldn't leave the ground even with the 1,000 screams. Don't worry. I'm sure you'll both do amazing. I cheered, wrapping my arms around them, giving them quick side hugs. I hadn't been too confident with what could happen. The possibilities were endless, but the more we'd worry, the less likely it'd be that we would achieve the goals we'd had in mind. Midnight held her tassels into the air. Now for the introductory speech. 10 Someone should talk to Ms. Midnight about what she's wearing. Kirishima blushed, looking down. 23 Yeah. That costume should come with a warning. Denki agreed, scratching the back of his head. The two were finding it difficult to stare without feeling a distracting discomfort. For looking back at Midnight, I'd say that her costume was unsettling for a high school competition. But I wasn't one to say anything. 21 Silence everyone. She yelled, getting everyone's attention. And for the student pledge, we have KatsukiBakugou. You have to be shitting me. 21 Ignoring all the stares he was receiving, he walked up to the stage with his hands in his sagging pockets. 9 There was a quiet moment where he looked at the microphone before speaking. I just wanna say, I'm gonna win. He spoke plainly. 76 Universally there were boos coming from each direction of the student body, though they seemed to be going through of his ears and out the other. One I don't what I expected from him. Why would you be so disrespectful? You're representing us all. Ida screamed, karate chopping the air with his hand. 2 Not my fault, the rest of you are just stepping stones to my victory. Katsuki deadpanned, giving him a thumbs down. A series of threats went around to him as I stood there cross-armed, ready for them to start throwing pitchforks. 32 The screams continued even as he walked down the stairs. The thing was that I knew he wasn't joking. He genuinely thought he would win, and because of that, I don't think it really bothered me that he said what he did. Without further ado, it's time for us to get started. This is where you begin feeling the pain. The first fateful game of the festival. A screen showed up behind her as a lottery game spinner showed up. What could it be? She playfully questioned. It spun for a long time until it finally came to a stop. Ta-da! Him. An obstacle course. All 11 classes will participate in this treacherous contest. The track is 4 kilometers around the outside of the stadium. She announced, throwing her tassels into the air again. I don't want to restrain anyone, at least in this game. As long as you don't leave the course, you're free to do whatever your heart desires. Now then, take your places, contestants. 9 Like the rest of the students, I rushed over to the entrance as fast as I could. Easily you could predict the outcome of 𝗧𝗵𝗏, like a mess. There were too many students and such little space. Everyone watched as the green lights above flashed, disappearing one by one. Until there were no more shining. Begin. At once, everyone pushed through. Their patience and eagerness taking hold of them until we became squished in a tight ball. Frustration only grew within me larger with each second I had to stand there being pushed and shoved. I'm not exactly 7 feet tall, so even remotely finding a spot to look ahead was out of the questions. 46 I continued to squeeze my way through until suddenly, I was stuck. My feet were stuck, frozen solid to the ground. 𝗵𝗃, I mumbled to myself. I don't have time for this. When I closed my hand into a fist, banging it at the ice over and over until a piece of it had broken off. Grabbing it, I cupped my hands around it and waited for my powers to do the work. By changing the reality of the melting ice in my hand, I'd been able to create the head of a metal hammer. I used it to break enough of the ice surrounding my feet and run free. For Momo and a few other of my classmates also made their escapes, running as far as they could without anyone else getting in our way. Each of us looked at each other for a second, acknowledging our presence. Our running came to a quick stop as Mineta was launched into the air. A robot came from behind, rumbling the ground with each step it took toward us. 5 target acquired. Terminate them. It voiced, their color of its eyes changing from black to a glowing red. I stopped right next to Midoriya, who looked up the robot. UA never ceased to amaze me with its technologies and insane inventions. It's those robots from the entrance exam. Midoriya recognized, shaking in fear. I'd been glad that they were kind enough to take Senior and me without any testing. My eyes squinting as I noticed a person crawling out from its arm, running directly down. My question was answered when the ground beneath it had turned to ice. I was aware of Todoroki and knew his quirk came in great strength, but this was just insane to me. Careful, now! I froze them while they were off their balance. Todoroki yelled while he ran through its legs. It crashed to the ground, sending dust all over the place. 4 more robots gathered around us, trapping us in. I had to think fast. Time was running out in my mental clock and it felt like a waste to the progress I could be making. While I was thinking, there was a small breeze that flooded through my hair. Perfect. I moved my hands around, bending and circulating the wind until it created a funnel. The wind danced through my hands, tickling my palms the more it'd spin in my grasp. My arm swung, throwing it toward the robots. 6 It flew back a bit before landing on the ground in a crash. I ran past it and onto the next course. Here we have one of the 2 casters of UA. The hero courses YN Present MIC screamed over the speakers. 5 Where the hell do you think you're going? The sounds of explosions rang in my ears. 22 Class 1A's Bakugou is rocketing over the obstacles. Bakugou flew past me and over the next course. He'd been fumed, frustrated at our classmate who'd been stealing the spotlight that he very much wanted. For those of you who thought the first obstacle was easy, let's see how YA feel about the second one. Present MIC cackled through the speakers above us. Without paying much attention, I continued to run, still lost in my own thoughts and observations. For some reason, my brain hadn't told me to stop despite seeing other students paused and huddled around. It was until Mina grabbed my arm that I'd realized I was about to fall off the other side of the cliff. 8 Thanks. I huffed to her as I let my heart rate go back to a normal speed. When did they even have time to build something like this? Ochako questioned, thinking out loud. Zu next to me got down on all 4s and jumped across like it was nothing. She's fast. Mina exclaimed, surprised. I watched her for a few seconds before looking over her at the other side of the course. I was able to see Todoroki and Bakugou if I squinted my eyes small enough. They seemed to be arguing, fighting to which Bakugou may have started. I focused my attention purely on the open space between them. My eyes were closed, still seeing the light through my eyelids. The wind was more apparent against my skin, gazing it. And the ground beneath me, it disappeared before the soles of my shoes felt it again. Todoroki ran forward but at the wrong time as he bumped into my figure appearing in front of me. He tripped into me, our bodies colliding as he looked at me with a confusion. 22 Sorry, Didn't expect you to run so fast. I yelled to him as I turned to continue on the race. The microphones from 𝗧𝗏𝗏 and present MIC screeched before stopping. Hold up. Did she just teleport? 29. There was a sigh on the other end, huffed by 𝗧𝗏𝗏. She's a caster, let's remember that. Though we know most things about quirks, we know barely anything about casters. The only things we know are that she is a natural and catalyst type and both sides of dark and light. 16. Adding my own silent input, our powers as casters changed and ranged depending on the families. And now, we're finally approaching the last obstacle. Everyone had better tread carefully. You're stepping onto a minefield. If you look carefully, you can see where those little bombs are buried, so keep your eyes on the ground, folks. By the way, those landmines were designed for the games, so they might be loud and flashy, but they're not all that powerful. Just enough to make you wet your breaths. Making a slow stop, I looked around at the area. Slowly next to me, Todoroki ran up and stood next to me. The only thing I was able to hear was our heavy breaths and the faint sounds of everyone behind us. 6. It was only a matter of time until Bakugou caught up with us. Letting out a deep breath I unintentionally held in, I decided to be the first to walk forward. Carefully, I made my way around, hearing Todoroki follow behind me. We'd both been cautious, neither wanting to be the first to set an explosion off. But our peaceful focus before had been broken by a different explosion. 𝗵𝗃𝗏. Bakugou flew past me, gusting wind that threw me off balance for a second. Your declaration of war was to the wrong person. He screamed, attacking the two-toned boy physically and verbally. They were farther ahead of me now, and there were a ton more students here now than there were before. I got too hyper-focused on being careful that I didn't even notice how much was going on. Boom 6. A huge explosion sent a heavy gust of wind at everyone. It scared the living crap out of me as I shielded my eyes from the pink light to search for the source. My eyes widened as surprised as the other who saw who the suspect was of the blast. It was Midoriya. 23. He was flying in the air, holding onto a piece of scape metal. The amount of thought that had been done behind his actions had blown away my thoughts. I couldn't help but be surprised at his thinking under pressure. Todoroki and Bakugou came to a realization, noticing they were going to fall behind if they kept staring. They were tailing right under Midoriya. And that's when I decided I had been done watching around. Freeze! I yelled. I ran across the field, taking advantage of the fact that the bombs wouldn't go off until after the time had gone back to normal. 8. I hurried to them, still keeping my distance enough to where no one would notice the large distance I'd ran. It was enough to be in the boys' view but not distract them from seeing me. 1. I laughed slightly, noticing their post-irons. Midoriya was upside down. With panic covering his entire face, Todoroki still somehow looks good with his hair tangled up everywhere, and Bakugou well. 25. He looked like a rabid hyena. 65. Everything around me slowly started moving again as I pretended to blend in with it. Go! I whispered, making the surroundings move back at their normal tempo. Midoriya turned from where he was in midair and slammed the metal piece into the ground, sounding a whole other explosion. While Todoroki and Bakugou were distracted, he ran off to the end of the course. The three of us followed behind him, using the last of our abilities to push through. I'd used the wind to fly myself through the tunnel, lining up with both Bakugou and Todoroki. Each of us were trying to throw each other off in some form. I'd never been so determined to reach the end of something that wasn't a story until this very moment. The rush was one that felt brand new to me, unfamiliar. But before I could settle deeper with that feeling, we'd reached the end of the tunnel and were back at where we started. Izuku Midoriya is our champion. 48. The crowd roared in cheers and screams over his win. Unexpected it was. He was followed by Todoroki, Bakugou, and I, who didn't reach him as quickly as we thought we had. I stood off to the side, my hand against the wall and my head hanging down. They were shaking, my hands, and I could feel the tension build in my fingers. I tried to move them, crack them, but it felt almost like a RBB band holding them up. Though it had been Midnight's voice that brought me back from my exhausted reality. 5. Allow me to explain. The participants will form teams of 2 to 4 people as they see fit. In theory, it's basically the same as a regular playground game. But there is one difference. Each player has been assigned a point value based on the results from the obstacle course. That gives everyone more of a reason to want to go after each other, I said to myself, crossing my arms. Bakugou, who was in front of me, looked over his shoulder, eyeing me. I squinted my eyes back, glaring at him. Now, then. The point assignments go up by increments of 5, starting from the bottom. For example, 42nd place is worth 5 points, and 41 is worth 10. And the point value assigned to the first place contestant is 10 million. Sixth attention is that second had skyrocketed. Everyone turned, their hunger for a win taking over as they looked at him with the deepest of loath and angry longing. He'd known within seconds that he was going to struggle. But this brought a different thought. Once you had his headband, you automatically were at the top, the winner. It was common sense since he held the highest possible points you could obtain. If anyone wanted to win, teaming with him was out of the question. 2. These are the rules that you'll abide by. The game itself will last 15 minutes. Individual point values will be added together to reach your team total. Everyone will know how much you're worth thanks to your headbands. Swipe as many headbands as you can to raise your team's score. Stolen headbands must be worn from the neck up. So the more you steal, the harder it'll be to manage them. The situation immediately got more interesting. A team could lose points faster than they could gain them if they weren't smart about their way of thinking. This round would showcase everyone's ability to think under pressure along with defending their team as they did. Maybe it was overconfidence, but I didn't think I'd do terribly at this stage. I was confident I'd go great for that matter. You may use your quirks as much as you like. But there are still rules. Make a team fall on purpose and I'll slap you with a red card. You'll be disqualified. Now you got 15 minutes to build your teams. Everyone scrabbled, looking for friends or allies who they could trust and work with. I'd been almost lost amongst the others who knew exactly who they wanted. Not so DMN fast, you witch. You're on my team. Bakugou grabbed my arm, holding it tightly. I slapped his hand from natural reaction and pulled in away. 59 who died and made you the boss. I said, crossing my arms. I had to admit, I was relieved that he had picked me since I felt no one else would. 11 I don't need you and your bitchy-butt attitude ruining my chances of winning. He growled, grabbing my arm once more. He dragged us over to 𝗧𝗏 and 𝗧𝗵𝗲, who also were on the team. 30 glad to see you take me as some sort of threat. I teased, earning an eye roll. While being dragged behind him, I noticed his hand around my wrist. They were much larger, though his grip wasn't as tight as I'd expected to be. Also a tidbit sweaty. 14 but it was expected from an explosive quirk. So what's the plan, Bakugou bro? 𝗧𝗵𝗲 wondered as we approached them. He looked around at the other groups, noticing their depth in conversation. 2 Yeah, what's your fantastic plan, here? I said with a slight tease. Something about poking at him with words had been entertaining under all this pressure. Your quirks are useless unless you know how to make me win. Bakugou threatened, looking at us unenthusiastic. Don't make me regret picking you. 6 Well, technically, I played with my power, swirling it around my fingers in a juggling motion. You picked me, so this is all on you if this goes south. 17 Go to hell. He growled, giving me the coldest stare. He was frustrated with my small comments, just itching to the moment to where he could shut me up. 24 Gladly, I mumbled, turning around to look at the other groups to make my own observations. 12 Todoroki's group was beautifully selected, not surprising. He had speed, brains, power, and pure skill to be able to cover all offensive and defensive measures. I didn't know much about him, nor did I want to describe him as the son of Endeavor. He lived up to what people thought he'd be like. On the other hand, Midoriya had a more unique group. From the looks of it, his group consisted of himself as the main rider and defense. He also had Ochako, Tokoyami, and I believe her name was Hatsune from the support class. As for having a balanced group, they were fairly close but not fully there. 2 Although they did have Midoriya and Tokoyami, who I knew were skilled in battle, Ochako was better at support since her quirk did make it difficult for her to attack melee. I was almost positive that Hatsune was in their group to bring light to her creations while also being small assistants. The attention was on them since they were the highest worth team. You're scooping out things pretty deeply, 𝗵𝗲. 𝗧𝗵𝗲 bubbled up, waving his hand in front of my face. 23 here. I turned back to them, noticing all eyes were on me. Oh, yeah. Sorry, I was just taking some mental notes. What did you find out? Did you finally use your powers for something useful? Bakugou jabbed. 32 I rolled my eyes at his usual hostility, looking away from his contact. I was just observing the other groups. Calm down, Candlestick. Well, we gotta figure out something. 𝗧𝗏 shrugged. He had no idea where this was gonna go. That entire time I had zoned out, they came to nothing. If I was going to work with them, we needed some bases to go off of. Todoroki's group. Hey. Bakugou asked with slight irritation from my short details. His group is one we should worry about. Midoriya's is a bit weaker when it comes to balance, but Todoroki's isn't. We need to be able to hold our own but also figure out a tactic to not completely eat SHT and lose all of our points. I rambled on. I wasn't a very quiet person, but whether people knew or not, I was making observations of them. One, people were two-sided, it was a natural instinct of humans. One, almost like a defense mechanism. Though someone was able to conceal themselves to the public, situations like this round could show some true intention. This could be applied inside or outside of our situation. Trusting was a difficult idea. Force sounds like she's got it down. Some manly thinking here. 𝗧𝗵𝗲 grinned, nodding his head in approval. 56 𝗧𝗏, Bakugou rolled his eyes. 6 That also means you're but needs to stay calm. We can't have you exploding and throwing a tantrum or exploding out of control. I stuck my finger into his chest where it bent at the hard surface. 37 Don't act like you're the boss of me. He yelled, getting in my face as he threatened me. I'm able to be the way I want and don't need you to add your input, got that? Loud and clear, I mumbled, sarcastically putting my hands up. There were thousands of people watching, maybe millions. 8 With him blowing up at any moment, we could end up being eliminated at just the second round. From the bits of him that I knew, I could just tell he wouldn't like that. Oh, goody. It's time to get this party started. Midnight sang, stretching her arms across her chest. After 15 to pick teammates and talk strategy, 12 cavalry teams are preparing to go head-to-head. Present MIC's voice bounced off the stadium walls into our ear canals. Oh. Bakugou, just why would you step on my shoulder? Please, use your brain for once and not do that. I yelled at the blonde, digging my fingernails into his ankle that I held onto. One, guys, come on, we gotta work as a team. 𝗧𝗏𝗏 groaned. Why did I pick this group? 𝗧𝗏 wondered to himself quietly. 97 It's time for an arena-thumping UA battle royal. Present MIC continued, sounding off hundreds of screams from the crowd. 9 If you lose that headband, Bakugou, we're done for. Please, try not for all of our sakes. I prayed up to him as he tied the headband on. Don't worry about it. He grunted, pulling the white band to tighten it. I got this. No one is gonna beat me. He grinned devilishly. 58 Yeah. We got this in the bag. 𝗧𝗏𝗏 agreed, turning his head to the side where I could see his smile. I'm gonna crush that DMN nerd. For as they counted the last few seconds, I looked up at him, staring at the back of his head. I didn't know him well, was barely acquainted with him to the smallest and clearest parts of his personality, yet he felt almost transparent to me. He pulled a thread in my body that nobody was able to. He was honest and true to himself, that was refreshing around people who lived lifelong years of a fake persona. Maybe it had been because of his thoughts of winning. This guy worked harder than I have ever seen anyone else try just to achieve his goals, even in the short amount of time I'd seen. Bakugou had worked harder than everyone here to achieve his goals, and his eyes never left sight of that ambition. I took a note of that, being almost envious. Because even I was too much of a DMN coward for things beyond this competition. Begin, flashback 3 Poor girl. The nurse's hands were careful, gentle as she navigated the ragged clothes off my shoulders. I was surprised, unfamiliar with how delicate her touch had been. It was uncomfortable but better than what I'd received before. I observed the room. Cold, it was, the air conditioning the room freezing everything to where I felt the drop in temperature. Bumps surfaced on my skin, chills running down violently quick. She sighed, her hands rubbing together before patting my skin. "You're going to freeze." "Oh, honey, I wish you hadn't gone through this." She'd seen ranges of abuse, none reaching the severity she noticed on me. The quote goes, "After rain comes a rainbow, yet after my drizzle came a storm." There was a spiral, a never-ending path of horrors that became inescapable. For as her treatment continued, she'd kept the tempo and pressure light, stamping over the purple splotches in my skin, wiping away every crust and drip of BLD that had been apparent. It just had to be me. Born into a family where joy turned into torture. Where being let out of my room was an honor and seeing the sunlight was a blessing. One, because to my father, I would never learn to grow strong without pain. But he stepped over that line many times. 13 My value to him was much different than the value of a daughter to a father. I was a weapon to his plans. "Come on, sweetie. Let's get you dressed." Her voice was soothing, almost like my mother. She protected me, took care of Senior and me whenever she could, though success was not always in her favor. Since BH, life had always been on the opposite side of the spectrum. I was destined for the grave, flowers already prepared to be laid. 5 All because of my father. His ideas were wicked, laced with his fate of power and only power. No love was in his heart, not a single drop. If pity were to even strike his soul, I'd be the day he saw his death. The words he'd spoken to me were tattooed into my mind, their curves and edges scraping holes of where they'd live. Forever. If you live, I'll find you. 5 This all happened because of you. You will forever be at fault. 6 Why was it that the man that was supposed to be my first fatherly love, the one that nearly killed me? It took my life and hers for them to help. For someone to save us. And I couldn't forgive anyone for that. His flying away. 5 Our group turned their heads, eyes aimed toward where Midoriya and his group had flown to their escape. Growling, Bakugou's throat gurgled, vibrating till the deep growl escaped his mouth. Don't let him out of your sight. 46 Their distance will only grow. Our best option would be grabbing other headbands while we wait for them to land. I suggested, my eyes squinting toward the sky they disappeared into. It was only a matter of time until they would come back to the ground. 1 She's right, Baku. We gotta keep us high on the leaderboard to go on to the next round. Kirishima nodded, agreeing with my statement. No. Bakugou screamed, turning to aim his words at me mainly. Once we got Deku, that's it. We can win with his points, and only his. Hard-headed as usual, or as I'd learned within this short amount of time. 7 What's our next move? Zero asked, a tired tone set in his question. As unaware as I was, I shrugged. Ask Bakugou. He seems to have his own ideas. Yet before the chance had even been given to us, an explosion flashed our faces, and he was gone. Immediate panic and disorganized actions had sprung in the 3 of us who stood on the ground without our so-called leader. Where is he going? Zero cried. Baku, where you going, man? Kirishima called out to the blonde. He didn't care to look back even for a second. 1 We watched from below. Midoriya's emotion-cleared face had been threatened quickly with the horror of seeing Bakugou fly at him. He tried his best to mumble a series of demands to his teammates in hopes of reflecting against the air attack, though it had been too late as Bakugou's sharpened fingertips reached out for the grip on Midoriya's headband. My attention drew back to our group, specifically how our group was nowhere near Bakugou. If at any moment he were to fall, it would ultimately be to his possible death. I'd given Kirishima a small nudge in hopes of moving us closer. As we did, I'd noticed Bakugou failed at the goal of grabbing the headband as dark shadow blocked the way. I'd barely given myself thought before I spoke in panic. Zero, grab him. Got it. He confirmed, lifting his elbow, taking hold of Bakugou before the ground met him first. The rapid weight from him caused a dip in our balance, though the care had been on making sure he was okay. We tried our best to help with sitting back up despite the difficulty of not being able to let our hands go. Whoa! Bakugou had been separated from his horses. Is that even allowed? 𝗵𝘃𝗻𝐼𝐶 turned slightly sideways as he waited for the okay from Midnight or Aizawa, his counterpartner. Baku, what were you thinking? I scolded, hooking his leg over my leg instead of in front of my face. There were many equal parts of me that were all worried, mad, and relieved. 1. He never touched the ground, so technically, it's okay. Midnight confirmed as she kept an eye out for the other groups. 2. I was thinking I'd get the headband myself. He huffed as he situated himself. I'm back on the ground, right? So shut up about it already. 3. His life had been run by risk, no more than 2 thoughts to his actions. The confidence built up in him was one that brought strangers like me to confide in. A strange trust in the unknown that had comforting in its most horrid of times. Fine, just give a warning next time, I mumbled with much reluctance to my agreement. We continued on with the round, our energy at ease after the decision Bakugou decided. We stood quiet as each of us tried to think of a plan to execute our goal, though it seemed we got too comfortable. A group took us by shock, their appearance came almost unnoticed. Swiftly their leader's hand reached up, removing the headband from around Bakugou's head as they rode by. Each of us shocked, we almost had no reaction. We lost all our points. 11. My hand reached back, blindly, taking hold of the arm of one of the opposing team members. There was much objection to the hold I had on them, though. Within those few seconds, I'd been able to release a silent attack. My palm had released a toxin, one that my body produced to fit intruders from entering my system. It was part of my power, 𝗵𝘃𝗲 into the system of living beings and broken them down until there was nothing more than dust. It was meant to protect my DNA and fight against others. Your class is too small-minded. Think bigger. 𝗵𝘃𝗲 mocked, the light wave of our headband in his hand. I peeked back, eyeing the teammate of his. 13. There'd been a light glow in his veins, one that could only be caught for a second before it had disappeared. It was my signal that the power was beginning to work. Though it'd only be a small amount, I didn't want to kill the boy. What did you say? Come back here. Bakugou screamed, eyes full of fury. His anger took over, a bold blindness taking over his views, obstructing him of his main goals, our main goals. Their group paused, their backs turned to us. Midnight said the obstacle course was just the first game, and we figured they wouldn't cut that many of us right off the bat. Would they? Here. Assuming they'd keep at least 40 contestants for the next event, all we had to do was make sure we stayed within that group as we ran. From our spots in the middle ranks, we could fully observe the quirks our rivals had and judge their capabilities. Only a fool would obsess over winning the preliminary rounds, wouldn't you agree? He taunted, squinting his eyes hypnotically. Something in his presence irked in. A loath to his mockery and underestimation that brought only humor to his head. It was a knob of resentment that came and stood rather than go. You planned this as a class? Bakugou asked him, curiously, to much surprise, without a yell. 𝗵𝘃𝗲 nodded, tying our headband to his head. It wasn't totally unanimous, but I'd say it's playing out well. 𝗵𝘃𝗲 smirked, shifting his arm to prop of his hip. Hey, Tiver coming. His teammate muttered out, looking down at his arm as he spoke. There was a slight satisfaction that had risen in my system, though my help to our ground had only been minimal. It's better than chasing after a temporary frontrunner like a horse with a carrot waving in his face. Bakugou's eyes twitched, a pure disgust toward the opposite group. He'd been trembling, a light shake to his legs as we held them. His emotions hit me as his anger was much offset to my calm yet on edge one. We didn't move, but they did. Oh, while I have your attention. You're kind of famous, aren't you? He asked directly to Bakugou. For being attacked by that sludge villain. You'll have to tell me about it sometime. It must be strange to always find yourself in the role of the victim. It was almost visible there that the bit of rope that held Bakugou back had ripped. He was livid with hostility. 1. Kirishima, we have a slight change of plans. The tone in his voice was completely indifferent to what it had been before. Angry was an understatement to the emotion he was ready to unleash. It was there that the 3 of us below him noticed how serious Bakugou turned. Before we take down Deku, we're gonna kill every last one of these B-list idiots. Bakugou declared, his knuckles crunching as they cracked all at once. His flame was more than the simple spark it had been before. It spread, grew as his crave for victory, and only victory had crossed through his mind and body. He was determined to have both of his ends meet. Calm down, Bakugou, 𝗵𝗃𝗵𝗲 suggested, slight hesitance to his tone. You've got to keep a level head or we'll never get our points back. 𝗧𝗵𝗲 added to 𝗵𝗃𝗵𝗲's previous suggestion. I'd been ready to provide my own sense of tranquility until he screamed. Rah! He yelled grittily, exploding his fist together over our heads. Shut up. I've never been calmer. Can't you tell? Now get after them, 𝗵𝗃𝗵𝗲. 21 Please don't make us regret this. The redhead mumbled hesitantly. He also was much too nervous to fight against the orders. Think it's too late for that? I sighed, a quiet whisper to my voice. Within those few seconds, we were pushed to run after the group. They noticed our follow quickly, taking action by attempting to speed up. You think you're tough? Bakugou asked rhetorically to 𝗵𝗏𝗻𝗲. Die. He threw his arm forward, an explosion escaping his palm though it had been completely off aim. As Bakugou prepared himself for another attack, 𝗵𝗏𝗻𝗲 countered it with an explosion much like his own. Here. Wow. I see why you like this quirk. 𝗵𝗏𝗻𝗲 looked at his hand, admiring his new temporary power. One whoa. So weird, that guy has your quirk. 𝗵𝗃𝗵𝗲 was too lost in the moment to make the connection. DM it. His quirk, it's able to copy the ones of people he makes contact with. Be careful, guys. This was very much turning on us. I had the advantage one of the few times. If 𝗵𝗏𝗻𝗲 even attempted to duplicate my powers, they'd reject him. My powers were mine. Crafted specifically for my body and nature, harming the ones who would try to take them out from their home. Stop 'em. I can't move, it's too sticky. 𝗵𝗃𝗵𝗲 wiggled his leg, shifted it in different directions in hopes of loosening the white glue from his leg. They'd thrown it on him while we were distracted. 17 Bo, don't move please. I removed an arm from 𝗵𝗃𝗵𝗲, reaching under Bakugou's legs to make direct contact with the glue. One wrong move and I was going to accidentally hurt Bakugou, a place I did not want to touch. 33 The smog left from my fingertips, joining the glue where it would be. It slowly broke down the atoms from the glue substance until only a residue was left. Okay, you're good. I rushed, my hand sped back to its original pace, giving 𝗵𝗃𝗵𝗲's shoulder a squeeze of reassurance. Awesome. Let's go this. 𝗵𝗃𝗵𝗲 grinned, racing forward at full speed. 5 Bakugou looked over his shoulder, smirking at me maliciously with glee. Though it may have not been a true thanks, it was enough. 11 We'd created an alliance, an equal understanding our each other's abilities with slight ignorance hinted toward each other. A friendship may not have been defined, but it was expected for our acquaintance. Losers! Get back here! Bakugou screamed, pointing his arm at the ground, who had difficulty escaping from us. As everything occurred, a light couple taps on my arm caught my attention. For I asked for a warning, and though it may not have been XPLCT, it was still what I asked. So I accepted it and help. As he prepared himself for the jump, I steadied myself, allowing him to gain a straighter idea of his destination. He jumped off our hold with the help of my light throw. Hey, don't just fly off on your own. Why did you help him? 𝗵𝗃𝗵𝗲 groaned, his eyes closing as he sighed. He was gonna do it either way. Just follow him. I directed, pointing to where Bakugou had been rocketing toward. 𝗬𝗵𝗏𝗏. Stop him. 𝗵𝗏𝗻𝗲 demanded rapidly to his teammate. A funnel of air came out of his mouth, circulating until it solidified in front of Bakugou. He grabbed it, held onto the edge of it in fear of falling and causing an entire loss for our group. He didn't take that as a pause as he continued to take jabs at the block. No matter how hard, forceful, or quickly he hit, it would bounce off. Not a single scratch in its material. You look pretty stupid fighting with the air. He mocked, laughing at Bakugou. With my quick observation, the boy seemed to be okay. My power didn't seem to work. I had to admit, it was a bit disappointing. Bakugou continued to struggle as all of us pitifully watched with no action to provide assistance. I couldn't stand seeing act alone. 1-0, let go of my hand. I directed, wiggling my fingers around in his hold. Okay. My stare on Bakugou intensified, focusing on his and the exact location of where each of his body parts sat on the wind object. Then we swayed places. 9 as observed, I held onto the wall the same as he did. Watching and actually acting were two things I was almost unfamiliar with. I sunk a quick look over my shoulder, my teammates in shock, confusion from what happened. In more specifics, how it happened. Yet this would have to be a story for another time. My attention swayed back to the task at hand. My free hand felt across the glass texture, making silent evaluations toward it. The idea in my mind would be a large one, though in this situation we hadn't much of a choice left. My fingers spread, laying flatly on the glass as I focused my power into it. Slight sizzling occurred, burning against the substance. It tingled, fought against my power with much resistance that it was almost difficult for me. But that was until my hand got through the other side. I whipped out my hands, throwing out my power like a rope, a black one that pulled the headbands off Monoma's hand and retracted back into my own. My heart was beating, excitement crawling through my skin like an insect. It was a rush like no other, yet so intoxicating the louder the crowd cheered for my small victory. Flatly, my hand pressed against it. Slight sizzling happened before my hand popped through the opposite side. "Grab her, now!" Bakugou screamed, demanding 𝗧𝗪 with such aggressiveness. The tape grabbed my waist, pulling me back down. Before I completely made contact with the ground, I swayed the places between Bakugou and me to their original positions. 5 Team Bakugou nabs 2 headbands and moves into third places. Present MIC announced, making the audience roar in excitement. This is a wacky turn of events. That was insane. 𝗧𝗪 complimented, looking at me with wide eyes. Now we can advance to the next round. Kirishima sighed in relief, a smile showing up directly after. We're not done. Bakugou shrieked, knocking on Kirishima's head continuously. We're gonna be the indisputable champions of the game. I smiled in response, a playful nod following after. We almost lost everything, almost disqualified from this round. Yet Bakugou's cravings for more only grew. I couldn't brace myself earlier when I jumped. I'm not getting any more help, get closer. He continued, bringing up his fist. We'll get out points back from this idiot, then go for the big one. Heh! Kirishima grinned, leaning forward as we gained speed. We headed toward Midoriya's group, who'd been in an altercation with Todoroki's. For the meanwhile we were occupied. The wind hit our faces, flashing us with cold pangs that were almost refreshing. Our shoes scratched the ground, echoing our heavy steps behind us. We were on the same level, the same tempo of how terribly we wanted those points. Elbow guy! Tape him! Bakugou instructed, lifting his leg up for 𝗧𝗪. 3 My name's 𝗧𝗪. He smiled, straightening his arm to release the tape. Broom Rider. Use the wind to power us faster toward them. Bakugou smirked, looking down at me. 172 I hooked my head, opening my hand backward from Kirishima's shoulder. I hope you don't know I actually don't ride one. 7 Who cares? We sped, quickened toward them faster than they'd suspect. Bakugou used his quirk to get rid of the ice wall that had been set up by Todoroki before our arrival, his eyes almost never leaving his target. He wanted to be the best and would take nothing other than that. The true vivace and impeccable force he had was incredible. I wanted to provide the best support I could in order for that to happen to him. We're going after Deku and Todoroki, he declared. I bounded the headbands to his body this time before we made the same mistake we had before. The time was reaching its final seconds. Deku! He jumped off our hold and back into the air. We were left again, running to catch up behind him. Bakugou! Kirishima called out to him, pulling us behind. He didn't tell us again, 𝗧𝗪 whispers, rolling his eyes at the ground. I don't know what you guys expected. Damn it, icy hot. Bakugou used explosions to fire himself at Todoroki's group, where they had just gotten hold of Midoriya's points. Everything was laid out, close in distance, only centimeters away from being in our hold. This would be the moment we would set ourselves apart from everyone else and be known throughout the rest of the festival. Eyes would be laid on us. Time's up. Present MIC interrupted. And with that, the second round is officially over. One Bakugou's soaring came to a sudden stop. He crashed down to the ground, thudding into the floor as he did. Bakugou! 𝗧𝗵𝗲 cried as we ran to him. Are you okay, man? Kirishima asked, concerned. That was a pretty hard fall. I laughed, covering my mouth, muffling the sound of my laughter. The sound of his face colliding with the ground had been repeating in my mind. 28 growling. He screamed into the floor, pounding his fist into it. 16 Now let's take a look at who our top 4 teams are. Present MIC began. In first place, Team Todoroki. In second place, Team Bakugou. Kind of annoying how close we were to first place, but I shrugged, accepting the hard work we put in. Meh, I agree. But we're moving on, so it's all good. 𝗧𝗏 smiled pridefully. 8 I don't think our leader would agree with you. Like at all. Kirishima nodded his head to Bakugou, who sat on the floor. He was stared into the ground, shaking in anger before screaming like an angry child. 38 I walked up to him, patting his head roughly. Stop being mad for no reason. At least we made it through the next round. Shut up. He barked, glaring at me. Geez, fine, Mr. Grumpy Breathes. I'm gonna go eat because carrying you is harder than it looks. You're heavy. I sighed, walking away while rubbing my arms that were a bit sore. Hey, YN. Come eat with us. Okacho waved to me. I smiled and headed in their direction, looking at Bakugou once more. 3 He got up from the floor and walked in the opposite direction. He was different than what I'd seen in people. More in touch with himself in the way that he did everything by his own rule, the way he wanted. Plus no one could influence his thoughts even in the angriest of times. But yet, it was strangely refreshing. Years ago you were 7, your brother was 9 1 I stared out the window. Fields of rides were out the opposite side, their peaks of mountains they laid on rising and falling. The sun was a spotlight over them. 𝗧𝗵𝗲 rays glowing over their bases, reflecting against the water that laid under the root of the plants. The wind blew, causing light sways of the plants at a similar tempo that my foot bounced against the car floor. The outside was a view that I'd never thought to see. YN, Senior called louder than he previously had. I responded, though I didn't turn my head to face him. Hey, look at me. He insisted, taking hold of my hand from where it limply laid on the seat. I flinched, jumping quickly to where I retracted it back. He gave me a frown, his feelings of sadness being projected through. I'm not gonna hurt you, okay? His hand reached out in front of me, waiting for him to envelope with his. I just stared. We had a few interactions before. Many of them being where we couldn't speak to each other. They were simple looks, peeks toward each other bedroom door. There were times he'd try to look inside mine, his eyes squinting so tightly to look through the keyhole. But Dad would shoo him away. All these years, I only knew his name. I promise. 𝗵𝗃𝗵𝐶. He smiled, lifting his pinky close to my face. 25 Saying I was confused wouldn't explain that enough. The idea of a promise being sealed with a finger hadn't made any sense. Carefully, his hand grabbed mine, folding all my fingers except the last smaller one. He wrapped ours together tightly. And there stood a small blink of hope in his eyes. I'll always protect you and be there for you forever, he declared, grinning ear to ear. 30 It a promise to me, but mostly to himself. Okay. I agreed, my lips curved up to match his. Little did I know that Mom was sitting in the driver's seat watching carefully at our interaction. Tears welled her eyes as she held in her tears. For months, possibly years, she prayed and hoped for a moment like this to come. Though it wasn't with all of us. For she never meant for your lives to turn out the way they did. That was one of the last things she wanted, but it did, and there was nothing to reverse it. She would try to repay for it and be the best mother to her 2 extraordinary children. Because that's what the both of us deserved. You really think Aizawa asked for us to wear these? Gyro asked as we walked through the tunnels. Reluctantly she pulled the top, an attempt to cover the exposed skin peeking through. Honestly, I dunno. I shrugged, being frank with her. Either way, he doesn't seem like someone I want to get zest off. 34. We even brought in cheerleaders from America to get your BLD pumping. Hold up. Present MIC paused along with the audience. Looks like Class 1A is going full-on fan service. 9. There was a second of time there we here would notice the mistake and stood silent. A moment of silence for the recognition that we'd been played. 2. What? You tricked us. Momo started screaming at the two boys who stood giving each other a thumbs up. You're gonna regret this. I hate that I feel kinda cute in this, I grumbled, folding my arms over my open torso. An empowering feeling came with wearing a cheerleader's outfit, though parts of me begged to take it off. 6. Momo fell to the floor with a defeated sigh. Why is it I always end up falling for that little pervert stupid schemes? Ochako walked up to her, rubbing her back softly. I even used my quirk to make these outfits. 1. You only did what was told of you, don't worry about it. I crouched down smiling at her. My head turned, glaring at the two boys. We should probably start heading to the stage to pick who we're up against. We walked over to the stage where the other 14 students were. All 16 of us had to pick from a box to see who we were up against. Come closer and draw lots to see who you're up against. Then enjoy the pleasure of the recreational games before we start. The 16 finalists have the option of participating in those activities or sitting out to prepare for battle. I'm sure you all want to conserve your stamina. I'll start with the first place team. Midnight ended her speech and started to walk over to where Momo and I stood with the box. Excuse me. I turned my head over to see Ojiro holding his hand up. Sorry, but I'm withdrawing. Ojiro. No way. Midoriya breathed out in shock. Many other students gasped, stared at Ojiro as if he'd been insane. This is a rare chance for you to get scouted, Ida added, agreeing with Midoriya's shocking statement. It just wouldn't be right. I barely remember anything from the cavalry battle until the very end of it. Ojiro admitted, looking up as he searched his mind for any recollection of the battle. I think it was that guy's quirk. With not having a quirk, I'd often been left in the dark about the abilities of them. It was interesting to know there was power like that in this world of quirks. I know this is a great opportunity. I wish I could take advantage of it, but my conscience won't let me. Think about this. Midoriya insisted, a gentle push with his words. Okay. Ojiro seemed to grow a bit irritated. Everyone gave their all in round 2, but I was just someone's puppet. No way. I don't want to advance if I don't even know how I got here. It wouldn't be fair. 6. After Ojiro spoke up, many more students started to back out of the competition, their reasons the same. 3. It sparked interest in me, the idea of a single quirk having hold so much effect on multiple people at once. Mind control was powerful, and if in the wrong hands, dangerous. 2. This sort of talk is incredibly naive, my boys. That turns me on. Shoda. Ojiro. You're withdrawn. Midnight announced, her finger twirling around her finger. 67. Once all the dropout contestants were replaced, we were able to accurately see who we'd be up against. My eyes followed the screen until my name had been found. Shizaki from Class 1B. Doubt in my abilities against her were not argued against. The single problem that elevated my thoughts was energy. How I'd be left with less than bed by the end of the battle. Let's press pause for a momentary interlude. Before the battles begin, it's time for some pulse-pounding side games. The girls decided to cheer as I stood on the side with less enthusiasm as they sprung out. It was only 10 minutes later that I decided to get up. That's when I saw him. Bakugou. I called to the angry boy. He stopped, looking around until he saw me approaching him. What do you want, which girl? He growled out, his arms crossed. Just wanted to wish you good luck since you'll need it. Maybe we could have that rematch from the other day. I smirked, looking up at him challengingly. A rematch was necessary. My guard had been let down during our spar and it hadn't sat right with me. He looked down at me, the side of his eye snatching a look before quickly looking away. You're the one who's gonna need luck. I watched as he walked away, carefully before turning the opposite way. I sat in the stands, Momo to my side as we awaited the first match of the one-on-one battles. The final event came quickly, I said, my eyes looking around the stadium in awe at the many people sitting. Not one seat was empty. I'd agree, it is quite a surreal reality, Momo replied, her eyes following where mine had also examined. We had mended the tension that had been first created on the first day. Though still, I felt I had to be careful with my actions and words around her. My body shifted to the side, half facing where she sat today. Who will you be up against today? Tokoyami. I am not sure of how I will do against him, but I hope to do my best, she said, determination written in her tone and expression. 2. You got in through recommendations, Momo. Don't doubt your ability. I smiled, attempting to give back the confidence I felt she was lacking. 2 parts of me had to refrain from saying she'd kick butt. Who will you be up against? She questioned after a small thanks. Shiozaki from Class 1B. From what I have seen, her quirk is vines, so I don't think I should worry much, I explained, moving my hair from my face. Did you hear that Ochako will be against Bakugou? She questioned, lowering her voice since Ochako had only been a short distance away from us. 29. My eyes shifted to the 2 who were down a few rows from us. Really? She nodded. The hesitation in me hadn't been cause I thought Ochako lacked the ability to fight him. It had been from the thought that Bakugou lacked the ability to understand the limits and boundaries he could reach. We can only hope for the best. Momo sighed, waving to Jiru, who had just returned from changing and eating. I stood up and fixed my shirt before turning to the 2 girls. I'll be right back. Walking down the staircase, I made my way to where Ochako and Ida sat talking. Hey, Wyan, Ochako waved to me. I could feel the nerves waving off of her body. She scooted over one seat to let me sit in between her and Ida. Hey guys, how are you guys feeling? I smiled, slowly sitting down. I would say I am feeling quite ready to continue, Ida announced, pushing up his glasses on his nose bridge. 5. Well, Ochako began, scratching the skin on the back of her neck. I'm pretty sure you know, but I'm up against Bakugou. 2. I'm aware, but don't worry about it, honestly. He's just a beach, honestly. My eyes quietly darted over to him as he already been squinting down at me. Nothing about him is too special. Just remember that he also has his limits. Really? You think so? She asked, with a glint of hope in her round eyes. Didn't you hear me? I know so, I concluded. I crossed my arms in satisfaction and looked at Ida, who also seemed satisfied with encouragement. 2. I was turning my head to look back at Ochako until I felt a heavy jolt fall onto the side of my body. Thank you, YN. Now I feel a bit more confident about the battle. I know I won't beat him, but I'll still try to give it my all. Ochako's previously pale skin had returned to its natural color and her smile was as bright as ever. I smiled and hugged her back, making sure to give her a comforting squeeze. You both will do great. I can't wait to watch you both kick some butt. I patted Ida on the head as he nodded back at me. 10. I waved at the both of them as I walked up the stairs back to Momo and Gyro. She was a sweet girl and I wanted her to have the fullest of confidence that she could have. If she doubted herself any further, I had the feeling that it would have taken effect on her performance. No one deserved to have their thoughts speak louder than their reality. As I walked up the stair, a foot suddenly stuck out, making me trip and fall onto the stair in front of me. 28. Watch where you're going, dumbass. Bakugou chuckled, a smirk branded onto his face as he looked down at me. 15. Bakugou, be careful. She could have really hurt herself. Mina scolded him while helping me stand back up. 1. But, I hope you eat it, I grumbled, dusting the dirt from my knees. Mina, could you come sit with me? I have something to tell you. I gave her that I know you know what I'm talking about look dip. CYA later boys. She winked, hopping over to Momo with me. Is it about who I think it is? She asked me as we walked up the stairs. I nodded. Yup. He texted me again saying he was going to watch the sports festival, but he said with EMI. 59. Jealously was not something I held in our relationship. But as for Ren, he was full of it. It just didn't sit right with me that on his end, this was okay. Something about Ren, I presume. Momo asked as we walked up. For correct as always. I grieved, propping my head against my palm as my arm sat against the rest of the seat. Ren? 𝗔𝗓 questioned quietly. Her boyfriend, Momo informed her. Between classes, they tried their best to get to know me, asking me questions of my life, and bonding with the things we had in common. Of course, Ren was a question of topic. He texted her saying he was going to watch the festival but with another girl. Mina reiterated to them. 7 That's strange. Are they usually so close? Momo questioned, turning her body to face me. Honestly, I'm not too sure. She was one of my friends, so it's kinda weird that they're hanging out all of a sudden. For I hadn't wanted to assume the worst. But what else was I supposed to think when the two people in my who never interacted with each other are now hanging out when I'm gone? 17 Don't worry. How could he cheat on such a sweet person like you? Mina encouraged, watching my arm around me and giving me a small shake. 31 In all seriousness, you're one of the most authentic people I've met, 𝗧𝗪 added, twirling her jack around her finger. 91 You guys are right, I'm probably overthinking the entire situation. I laughed, shaking my head at my silliness. I don't think I'd even be able to cheat on myself. 6 Show us more pictures. You both are gorgeous together. Mina raved, shaking my arm. I'll show you guys another time. I'm gonna go prepare for my fight. See you after. I waved, smiling at them. Good luck. I wish you the best of luck. Show 'em what you're made of. I chuckled, shaking my head as I walked away. Being at UA was far different than it was at Shiketsu. Everyone had their own friends and the friend groups would never mix. If those two truly were watching, I wanted to show them that even if they were up to no good, I was best without them. Let's go before the sun comes up. Crescent moon marks lived in my arms from each night my dad would grab them too roughly for my fragile skin. He dragged me down the hall, pulling me as I struggled to match his larger steps. Daddy, where are we doing? I wondered, quietly looking up at him. His features were dark, a certain venom in a simple look that gazed through the items he viewed. Shut up. He spat, his voice raising as he screamed. 39 The water running at the sink stopped. The silent pause in the washing of dishes that Mom had been doing. My eyes stood toward the ground. My body not moving an inch in fear of an outcome of more damage. Ryu, she's only a child. Be more gentle, please. Don't take it out on the kids. My mom quietly begged, her eyes full of pleading sorrow. This was the CYCL. The circle of events that sent down with each time he let me out of my room. Mom would try to tell him to calm down, stay quiet before things escalated, though it seems that had not worked. His care was often absent. He pushed me, shoved me outside the open door before walking toward Mom. That's when the sound of a slap echoed. You have no say in how I treat my kids. 52 Before I could shift over and check on her, he grabbed my arm again, walking full speed out the door to where it shut loudly. I peeked up, sneaking a look up at him. His eyes were glowing. Hatred and annoyance being fueled behind their fury and rage. Piece of he yanked me forward, his grip tightening. 12 I was a rag doll to him, being yanked left and right like there was no internal life inside me. I'm sorry, I whispered. I couldn't cry, I wasn't able to. No matter how much I'd gone through, how much I'd endured. My eyes were no longer able to filter out those toxins living in me. Shut up. He continued to drag me, eyes straight forward. But mine observed the environment around. There sat a park. The swings being rusted, the slide corroded with water stains. The grass beneath it was dead, stiff brown spikes coming from the ground. I'd never been to a park. I jumped, realized by daydream led me to unintentionally ignore him. Yes. Pay attention to me. He yelled, grabbing my face in his hand. I was forced to look into his eyes to only be faced with a reflection of myself. I looked like him. Okay. I mumbled, looking away. He threw my face away from his hand with a scoff. He stood quiet for a while, looking around as if he was searching for something. You see that cat over there, and he questioned, pointing to it a few feet away from us. 60 yes. I sighed, not wanting to predict what he would say to do. Exhausted of the actions I'd been forced to do. If you love Daddy, go kill it. 126 and it hurts so much to say that I do love him. 21 Even appealing flowers have thorns. It's the assassin from Class 1B Ibara Shiozaki from the hero course. Versus the multicaster we all adore and are slightly scared of. 64 My head turned, darting up at present 𝗵𝘃 with slight threat to the title he gave me. A newcomer to the hero course, Class 1A's 𝗚𝗚. He finished off, laughing nervously. Excuse me. Shiozaki called, lifting her hand to present 𝗵𝘃. Please pardon the interruption. I'm not sure why you called me an assassin. I've come to the festival in search of victory, not to take my opponent's life. That wouldn't be in line with the values of a hero at all, sir. 42 Present 𝗵𝘃 pounded his fist against the table, frustrated that he had been called out on. Right. I'm sorry. 5 Gentlemen, I didn't enter UA for wicked or selfish reasons, but to deliver salvation to others. She sang as an angelic light flowed over her figure. 34 It is my humble quest to spread true good across this world. For listen, I said I was sorry. Present 𝗵𝘃 cried over the intercoms. I hadn't been the only one who'd grimly laughed at his panic. That was my bad, okay? I thank you for your kind understanding. She bowed in conclusion to her speech. I stood there cross-armed. This girl had everyone wrapped around her finger. Whether it was part of her plan or not, I wasn't going to be distracted by her persona. So, anyway. Begin. Let's not go easy, alright? I said, though my words were in focus of earning a response. My hands leaned forward, curling my fingers upward toward her as the mist left my hands. It was a test. A time for me to figure out what her tactics were and how she responded when under pressure during combat. She turned around just as I predicted and created a wall of vines that absorbed the mist I released. For suddenly, they wilted, dying all at once as the substance entered their cellular system, breaking them down to where their botanic atoms could not longer hold. My vines! She cried, turned to grab the jagged bits that were left. Her eyes turned to me, cueing the real fight in her. 8 more vines grew, plunging into the ground as they traveled through the dirt beneath us. Once the rumbled beneath me became more apparent, I jumped back. My hand gripped the vine, a tight hold on them as within seconds they were no longer their original property. I wiped my hands on my breathes of the dirt I had created. Did you see that? She turned it into dirt in seconds. How is that possible? Present 𝗵𝘃 screamed. Shiozaki, 𝗵𝘃. They hold power that has still been undiscovered. Not all casters hold the same abilities, so we can assume one of hers allow the ability to change the properties of an object. Even if we did know her power, we are unaware of its full extent. Mr. Aizawa monotoned through his layers of bandages. 3 I shifted myself behind her, grabbing her arm and covering her eyes so she wouldn't move. My eyes were stiff-focused to where present 𝗵𝘃 and Aizawa Saturday. Put up a better fight next time. I whispered to her ear, a hint of loath in my tone. She'd annoyed me with the lack of fight she'd show. 31 In a blink she was out of my hold and fell onto the ground of where the 2 teachers Saturday won her. Present 𝗵𝘃's yell echoed through the 𝗵𝘃, catching the attention of everyone. Mumbles went around the stadium as everyone questions my strength. A Shiozaki has been teleported out of the stage. Yuma is the winner. Present 𝗵𝘃 announced, sending cheers through the dome. 12 And I predicted before, my few moments of confidence were shattered when my head began to P&D and my contacts could no longer hold my blurry eyes any longer. To the naked eye, my power was simple, I just moved her away to a different location. Though it was more. I used my strength to move her entire body without harm to an elevated area without harming her or the surrounding people. Not also to count the fact that I had to make sure I didn't take myself along with her. Then again, maybe I'm just too weak for the power I have. My attempt to make it down the stairs was wavy, but I made it to the tunnels without completely eating SHT. Even then I stopped in the halls where I leaned my back against the walls for support. A cold sweat dripped down the sides of my face as my own weight was too much for my legs. My eyes shut. The air blowing through the halls wrapped around my body, silently ringing through my ears. For once my crowded mind was silent. You only have a few more rounds, I tried to remind myself. I only felt more pressured to stay as long as I could with Ren watching and my brother physically being here. There was the presence of someone else, their steps dragging against the ground. Done already. You're weaker than I thought. With my eyes closed, I laughed slightly in my euphoric daze. Not even close. I could sense him in front of me with his shoulders to the wall behind him, mimicking my position. Here. My eyes opened, faced with my water bottle and snack size pack of M&Ms. I don't know what I expected, but it hadn't been this. Are you going to take it or stare at my hand the entire day? He rasped, squinting at me. 56. I took a breath in, leaning forward where I grabbed my bottle and downed as much as I could without drowning myself. Thanks. I lowered myself to the ground, sliding against the wall. I jerked my head down, motioning for him to sit down also. He looked down at me a bit concerned from how dazed I had been. A low growl escaped his mouth before sitting down next to me. He threw the candy on my lap before resting his hands on his propped knees. Take it. I'm not holding your 𝗧𝗏, he scoffed. 5. Where did you even find my bottle? I questioned, my eyes still closed. It was odd since I knew I left it at home by accident. There was no way he got it from anywhere else. As a caster, your power is like a health bar. The more it went down, the less I had power and the weaker I felt. At least until the next day when it regenerated. Your brother. He mumbled, raspily. 36. My eyes shot open. How do you know who my brother is? My brother was no mystery or person to hide. I'd spoken about him plenty of times yet never said his name. Not to mention the fact that the conversations about him were not with Bakugou. Here. I don't. There was some dude looking for you with this bottle, told me to give it to you. Stop assuming he brushed out, stumbling over his own words. 11. Soon after his head turned looking away from me and into the opposite side of the hall. I didn't believe him, but how could I argue against it? I wasn't there to see it myself. 2. All right, whatever you say. I shrugged, opening the candy packet. Why no? I began plopping a piece of chocolate in my mouth. You should learn to calm down more. You should learn to shut up. He fought back, glowering at me. 16. Bad comeback. But seriously, no one would want to be around a teenager that acts like an angry toddler who didn't get the candy they asked for. I derided, my mouth speaking before my mind. Like you know anything. He said under his breath. I paused, looking down at the ground with the candy ready to go in my mouth. It caught me off guard, although it shouldn't have. No, you're right. From the corner of my eye, I could see him look up at me. You're right. I don't know anything, but if one person notices it, then maybe multiple people do. Don't you think? The tone in my voice had completely changed. My usual comical persona was swayed to the serious static one that came over me. You could only hold the mask of a fake persona for so long before your arm grows tired. I put the candy in my mouth, snapping myself back to reality. Ignore what I said. Why no? He started, speaking lower than usual. You didn't do terrible. 27. I smiled at his half compliment. Thanks. A bit upset though that she didn't put up much of a fight. I thought it was going to be more difficult than it was. Just the way things happen. He trailed off. If only he was this calm at all times. You're right. I agreed, nodding my head. When am I not? He smirked, keeping his eyes straight at the wall in front of us. It was weird. There was a sense of comfort even if it was from this short conversation. Everything flowed so easily, and for once I didn't have to worry. Could the next two competitors make their way to the stage? We should head back. Your match is going to start soon. I sighed, shifting around a bit. Next to me, Bakugou raised himself off the ground and dusted off himself. I pushed myself up only to fall back down. I raised my hands up, waiting for him to pull me up. He looked down at me with a roll to his eyes before scoffing. 𝗧𝗏𝗏 lazy butt. He grabbed my hands and lifted me aggressively. 17, you don't have to yank my arms out of their sockets. I argued, circling my arms while holding my shoulders. We walked out of the tunnel, but before we separated, I grabbed his arm. Don't do terrible. Here. Just don't turn her dust. You're strong. And you know that, but so does everyone else. You don't have anything to prove. I told him, letting go of his wrist. Whatever. I don't care about what other people think about me. He scoffed, crossing his arms. 27, if you say so. Good luck, I know you won't need it. I smiled once more before spinning on the tip of my toes and walking back into the stadium stands. Yuma, over here. Looking up from the stairs, Jiru and Zu's hands waving, signaling me over to them. Though he wasn't there, I still watched my step as I walked over. Hey. I beamed as I took a seat in between the two. Ribbit. You did great, Yuma. Zu complimented, turning slightly to face me in her seat. Yeah, I didn't even know you could do that, Gyro added to her appraisal. Thank you. Took a bit out of me, so I'm glad that we have a bit of in-between time. I said, tilting my head to the right where it attempted to rest on my shoulder. The 8th and final battle in the first round of matches. Present MIC screamed, as his voice boomed through the arena. I leaned back in my seat, feeling bits of nervousness stir itself in my stomach. He was kind of a hotshot in middle school. And just look at that determined face. From the hero course, KatsukiBakugou. This is gross, I hate feeling worried and it's not even my match. I groaned, resting my hands against my cheeks. I feel exactly the same, Gyro agreed, her hands hugging Shaker as she tried to calm away the feeling. Versus, the one I'm personally rooting for, also from Class 1A, Ochiko Uraraka. She had such a determined and strong-minded attitude set over herself. 27 Once the round started, Okacho immediately ran at him, wasting no time to get near him. Getting her hands even remotely near Bakugou was giving her difficulty right off the bat. Bakugou scooped the air, sending an explosion toward Ochiko. Uraka! Ida and Midoriya cried from the row below us. One Gyro was holding her head from the sheer panic she felt. I couldn't help but bit my lip to stop me from making any reactions. One looks like Bakugou's not planning on showing her any mercy, Zu noted. I turned my attention back onto the stage, noticing the black smog was disappearing. It looked as if Ochiko had run to the side of Bakugou, but she was a diversion she used to fly behind him. She was only inches away from touching him, but he turned around too quickly. Their small CYCL of Ochiko trying to sneak and Bakugou blasting her instantly continued over and over until I came to notice something. There should have been more of a mess around the two, but it seemed like all of the broken rocks had disappeared. 3 It was possible that they were blasted into dust, but it wasn't like the rubble was his target. I looked around the area looking for a hint to what could have happened. That's when a small rock fell from the sky. It would have gone unseen by someone who wasn't looking for it, but as I followed it up, there stood a large group of broken concrete pieces. Listen, kid, you really wanna be a hero? A sudden voice yelled out of nowhere. A young guy was pointing down at where the two competitors fought. Then stop acting like a bully. If you're so good, just send her out of bounds. Stop toying with this girl and end the match. 27 Yeah, you heard the guy. A girl screamed, agreeing with him. Once they spoke up, more people started to voice their opinions also. Booing filled the stadium in a matter of seconds. The crowd is now booing Bakugou. And honestly, I kinda agree with that. They're saying present MIC's sentence was interrupted midway and the MIC he was speaking into distorted. Hey, whoa, what the CRP? Where is the man who started this uproar? Present MIC's voice was quickly replaced by Mr. Aizawa now. Are you a pro? Because if you're being serious, you can go home and hang up your cape. I'd suggest looking into another career. 60 Everyone sat still and wide-eyed from his passive aggressiveness. Bakugou's fierceness is an acknowledgement of his opponent's strength. He knows she deserves to have made it this far, so he's making sure he does whatever it takes to keep her at bay and come out on top. I wanted to think it was what I told him that was stopping him from fully unleashing his aggravation toward her. He fully had the power to take her out within seconds, but yet he was accepting her like the true worthy competitor she was. Everyone here had quirks that could help them in battle instead of hurting someone. One wrong move and I could kill a person. It wasn't any better that my family name was tarnished by my dad. The loath I had for that man. One Ochako tapped her fingertips, sending tons of rubble down at a rapid speed. Everyone looked amazed at the realization as I sat to see what would happen. Ochako took off full speed toward Bakugou to what I was guessing, tap him and float him out of bounds. With all of the debris falling, I felt like there could have been even the smallest opening for her. I had hope. 7 But of course, things don't always go the way we plan. Right as Ochako lightened herself, I could see Bakugou raise his arm up. In a matter of seconds, sparks flicked from his palms and turned into the biggest explosion I had ever seen him project on his own. The blast was so powerful that it sent a gust of wind into the stands, making everyone hold onto their seats to make sure they wouldn't fly away. Black smoke was everywhere, but once it was clear you were able to see Ochako on the ground and notice that all the rocks had been destroyed into nothing but microscopic dust. And all it took was one shot. 29 Everyone looked terrified yet amazed by how much he held. Though when looking at him, his worries seemed to be on something else. He was focused on his hand that was shaking from pushing himself too much. Uraraka is down. Present MIC yelled. Silence stood in the environment as Midnight made my way slowly to the stage. She leaned forward, looking down at Ochako's motionless body. After giving her a gentle pat, she shook her head. Uraraka is KO'd. Bakugou advances to the second round. The pro hero announced. I kept my hands on my cheeks, using their freezing temperature to cool down my warm cheeks. I felt so much remorse and sorrow from seeing someone so close to me in pain. She was so ambitious and saw everything from the real reality things were. She turned out to be an amazing hero. With that, the first round is complete. We're taking a quick break and then we're back with more matches. That was terrible, J.ro mumbled, shaking under her skin. I sighed, looking around the area. Tell me about it. Begin. With the idea that his quirk uses the force of speed, I gathered wind in my hands, whirling it around and through at the time when I noticed his takeoff toward me. He pushed against the force of it, remaining still in the motion he was stuck in. Seeing everyone's abilities, the sheer strength and courage everyone had presented during this amount of time had struck a chord in me that reminded me why I had chosen to become a hero. Their willingness and determination was like I had never seen or experienced before in the few years I had gone to a hero public school. With my slight distraction, Ida attempted to grab my arm, hoping he'd win by dragging me off the stage. He reached out for my wrist, his face full determination and the eyes as if he had just won. It was a shame to put his pride to an end. I turned, taking hold of his hand that was meant to grab me. I twisted it, restraining it to his back where I kept a tight hold. My foot kicked behind his knee, causing him to fall to the ground. Monster! 77 Everyone paused, including us, drawing their attention to where the scream had come from. I was only seconds away from bounding Ida's hands to the ground, allowing me to win. Looking up, it was the Class 1B student, his arm wrapped in white and his hysterical pointing directed at me. Ha! She used a poison, something to where I couldn't feel my arm. She's more a villain than I thought. 79 My heart dropped to my stomach, the feeling to vomit coming over me in seconds. My thoughts slipped, forgetting that I had needed to go to him after the cavalry battle and went to eat instead. The lack of responsibility in me was screaming at me, on the brink of panic. Someone else stood up. Isn't she the daughter of that one villain, Ryu? 34 How could UA let such a thing be let into their school? Not only one but two of them. That statement was followed by a few more yelled and hums of agreement. I just knew my brother was somewhere in the crowd, losing his 𝗧𝗵𝗏. What was I supposed to do? This was a mistake, a fatal reminder that I'd forgotten in the joy of being in the event. I let myself become distracted, too comfortable with the fact that everything was going well, in my favor. It came as no surprise that this would occur though. I thought life would allow me a few more seconds of fun. Present MIC's microphone squeaked, signaling he'd turned it back on. Now, let's take a step back. Yuma is an excellent student. Right? Eraserhead. He turned to his side, awaiting his counterpartner to respond. But the audience wouldn't give him a chance. Villain. 78 Villain. Villain. People often spoke without second thought to their actions. People are selfish, beings that only strive to earn the best for themselves, and if a person had benefit to them, friendships would form. That's what this group in the audience was, a group of people who only sought others for the benefit of their own. That didn't mean their words didn't hurt. That didn't mean that my brother and I had no feeling toward them even if they were continuous, heard everywhere we'd gone. It was stupid of me to try, to think that things would be better here. People wouldn't give a piece of their heart to understand. Hey! A new voice yelled much louder than the previous hollers. 43 I looked up, falling from the hold I had on Ida, onto the ground behind me. Out of all the people to stop this chaos, he'd been the last person I thought to side with me. 3 Calling someone a villain doesn't make you DMN extras any better. Get a thing life, you don't even know the girl. Bakugou scoffed, crossing his arms in annoyance. He stood, head held high, at the opening of a tunnel. Our class below him watched him in awe. 71 I watched him light curiosity. He didn't know me either, yet he was speaking of me as if he had. Maybe it was for the sake of my not making myself look bad. Yeah. 𝗺𝗏 is one of the best people I've ever met. 𝗧𝗵𝗃 added, standing from where he Saturday 36 𝗧𝗏𝗁𝗀𝗀𝗁 followed after along with Mina. 𝗺𝗏 would never try to hurt someone on purpose. 16 more students followed, ones from our class, agreeing and speaking their share of statements they believed were true about me. 3 But let's not ignore the fact that she injured a student. A man pointed out, his yell trying to top the other previous ones. 58 Though everyone was trying their best to defend me, protect me, their words were useless. If I hadn't spoken up for myself. I pushed myself off the ground, shaking off the dust that covered my hands and legs. My eyes closed for a moment, a deep gasp of air going into my nose. It was an accident. Like they said, I'd never try to intentionally hurt someone. SHT happens. 3 Admitting defeat or admitting I was wrong was a difficult thing for me to make amends with. My expectations of things were high nor low. I'd lost those ideas after all that has happened to me and Senior. Forever, I'm titled with their name because of my dad. I'd never forgive him. I released a toxic in his arm that could have ended worse. I messed up and I'm sorry. Though then I knew that wouldn't satisfy their hate. So I walked off the stage. 35 and didn't turn back. After everything that went on, I kept my distance from everyone, from the public outside. I was alone, hidden in the waiting rooms even if I was not continuing in the festival. My reasoning for not leaving the room was unclear. Maybe it was cause I had a fear that I would have been harassed or worse. I didn't have the energy to deal with people right now. People are two-sided though. 5 There would be the possibility of walking out and getting apologies left and right from those who yelled at me because Class 1A had defended me. But I wasn't taking the chance. Thought I'd find you in here. Senior sighed, closing the door as he walked into the room. 6 I propped my cheek against my face. What'd want? Just came to check on you. He walked over, pulling out the chair next to me. How you feeling? Fine honestly. I shrugged, putting my legs on his lap. We've heard worse. It was just a bit overwhelming to hear thousands of people yelled at once, but other than that, no tears shed. It's not bad if you cry. It was a lot. Senior sighed, noticing the lack of letting myself feel. What do I get out of crying? Tear stains. I'm not gonna cry because of something like this, but if you want I will. I argued, growing a bit irritated. 33 He hooked his head, a light roll to his eyes. I know, sorry. I don't know what I thought you'd do. He dropped his hands onto my ankles, holding them and pushing them up from falling. We sat silent, zoning out with the silence of the room. I had nothing in my mind, couldn't think of anything at that moment. Slight exhaustion had been the only thing. You think he's watching? He asked. Right away I just knew who was talking about, our dad. For I have no doubt in my mind that he isn't. I chuckled dryly. My head leaned to the side, sitting itself on his shoulder. Thought the same thing. Senior laughed, his arm going over my shoulder. Since BH, We were kept apart. Our dad was the reason for that. He kept Senior in a different room, neglected him their entirety of when we were in his possession. Because of that, our bond was only made when we were set free from him. When we were old enough to understand that the things we'd gone through weren't normal. But our bond now was stronger than anyone would have thought. We're still his BLD, I said out loud, almost as a reminder. I wish we weren't. Senior sighed, the discomfort in him rising. Parts of me does, the other half doesn't. We learned a lot because of him. Like what? The many ways to traumatize your Fing kids. You gotta stop doing that, YN. You're half dark because of him. Senior sat up, shaking my legs off his lap. 13, I was going to turn out this way either way. It was in my nature. Maybe he had an impact on it, but come on, let's be realistic here. Sen, I shook my head, looking away from him. He took a deep breath, a way for him to calm down and recollect his feelings. Okay, yeah, you're right. He gave in, nodding slowly. It's kind of funny. What is? We left here when it happened. Our lives started here, in this city, and it just feels weird. At Shiketsu everything was on a pause, like nothing was happening. An airy laugh left my mouth as I caught onto what he was saying. And now we're back and everything seems to be happening. Exactly. He nodded. He seemed to be content, happy that after so long, whether it were good or bad, he was finally feeling something again. How long has it been since we've lived here? I asked, laying my arms on the table. Off the top of my head, I'm not sure. You were like 7. I was 9. I don't know honestly. He recalled, attempting to think back at the memory. I wish my brain could do something right for once and just remember. I rubbed my head with my index fingers like it would magically recollect all my missing memories. He stood quiet, looking down at his hands. You really don't remember anything? If I did, it'd tell you. He hummed, nodding his head slowly. Standing back up, he stretched his arms in different directions. Come on. I bet your friends are worried about you. His hand reached down, grabbing mine as he helped me up. All right. I guess I'll go back. I joked, following him out the door and into the empty halls once again. You should thank him. He said, looking down at me as we walked. Thank who? That Bakugou kid. The one that stood up for you. He recalled, reminding me of the time. We walked up the stairs heading where the class Saturday. Oh, yeah, here. Totally forgot about the guy. I laughed, shaking my head. Sit with me. I don't really feel comfortable being alone. Yeah, course. He smiled, flicking my forehead. For once we were in everyone's view, they stood up, rushing over to me quickly. Ochako was the first to squish me into a hug. Why are you okay? We got so worried when you didn't come back. Mina pushed her to the side, hugging me tighter than I was expecting. Others including Gyro, Momo, Kirishima, and Kaminari came to see how I was. Yeah, guys, I'm fine. Just have to move on, right? I sighed, putting on a forced smile to my face. Senior elbowed my back, reminding me that he was there. I grabbed his arm, bringing him forward. This is my brother, Senior. I'm forcing him to sit next to me. All right, a new bro to the crew. Kirishima cheered, waving over at my brother. 9 Bakugou and Todoroki's match is about to start. Let's sit. Mina grabbed my arm, pulling me down to the empty seat next to her. Senior sat down next to me with Kaminari and Kirishima following next to him. One chaotic friendship is just pouring out of them. Yes, it all comes down to this, folks. From the hero course, Shoto Todoroki versus his classmate, KatsukiBakugou. Everyone all around cheered for the two. Now begin. Ice flew out almost immediately after they were told to start. Todoroki had taken no time to start attacking against his opponent. But Bakugou was following close also. Both of their skill was the progress of training and self-development. The time put into their skill would have outreached everyone's, most of the people who got into UA. Todoroki starts with a crazy ice blast. Bakugou seems to have been completely buried. Is it possible we've already got a winner down there? Doubt laid in my body at the idea that Bakugou was already done for. He had pride, way too much of it that would barely allow him to lose within the first few moments. Muffled explosions echoed after, ringing loudly though most of the noise had been from the inside. It created almost a feeling of fear in the silent stadium. Launching himself forward, he came racing toward Todoroki. The multicolored hair boy prepared to attack until the ash blonde curved his body, dodging the attack. He dodged his right side with a blast. Midoriya exclaimed next to Okacho. Awesome, Ochako whispered. This is insane. I sighed, my cheek smushed against Senior's arm. These kids are in your class. Senior whispered to me. I nodded in response. What the F? 28 I wanted to predict who I'd think would win, but I just couldn't. Both of them were extremely skilled and smart both in their own ways. If there could be two people in first place, it would definitely be those two. Todoroki surfed around the stage to avoid being thrown out of bounds. Bakugou took no time to run up to him as the two held onto each other's arms readying to strike. Use your left side. Do it, Shoto. Endeavor roared at his son. I had heard nothing but rumors about Endeavor, and with my story, I had no doubt that they weren't true. Why were dads such horrible creatures? 317 If Todoroki held in his demons, caged them in with the layers of regret, it would only lead to his own downfall. I just knew it. I don't want there to be any doubt that I'm the best student at the festival, Bakugou yelled at the top of his lungs. That's only possible if you come at me as hard as you can. There's no point if you don't fight me with the same power you used against Deku. If you don't want to win this, why are you even here? Show everyone you're trying to destroy me. Who knew he had so much built up in him? Come on, Todoroki. Don't give up. Do your best. Midoriya yelled quickly, standing up to motivate him. He stared back and forth between the two boys, unsure what to do. The situation was difficult, so many people watching, waiting to see what was about to happen next. Steam came off Todoroki's body and flames grew from his skin. Bakugou wasted no time to fly at him, seeing he was fully ready now. He funneled at Todoroki at such high speeds, his attack at full power with no hesitation in it. But at the last minute, something happened. The surge in emotions I felt dropped in Todoroki and was replaced with extreme sadness. It overwhelmed me, confusing my emotions from the sudden drop. The flames that were before on his arm disappeared and he looked down at the ground. I covered my face with my hands, too scared to see the outcome. Once I heard silences, I uncovered my face. Ice was broken everywhere along with the broken pieces of the stage that stood around. Bakugou laid his stomach flat on the ground while Todoroki lifelessly laid on the ice. He backed out the last second, letting himself be defeated. Seemingly being in shock, Bakugou shook his head, picking himself off the ground, heading toward Todoroki's unconscious body. You stop messing around. This isn't a real win for me unless you try harder. It can't end this way. Now get up. Don't. His voice cracked as he slowly faded consciousness. Pink mist flew into the air, knocking him out immediately. Midnight walked closer and looked at the sleeping bodies. Her hand stiffened into the air before speaking. Todoroki is out of bounds. That means Bakugou is the winner. I didn't know what emotions I felt at that moment. Both of them wanted victory so badly, but either didn't receive it the way they wanted or couldn't bring themselves to walk outside their comfort zone. It was definitely clear that both of them had things to settle within themselves. / / Nice work. Mr. Aizawa said. You have the next 2 days of school off to recuperate. I'm sure the pros who watch the festival will want to recruit some of you. We'll look over the draft forms and update you when you return. Get some rest. You still have a lot of training. Sir. I gathered my things quickly, in a hurry to catch up with someone before they left. Hey! Candlestick! He stomped, stopping right where he was. The gold medal hung from his mouth, shining in the light. I laughed and pulled on it. His eyes grew and he began to glare into my skull. 62 Calm down. I just came to say thank you. You know. For sticking up for me. I smiled but only earned a deeper glare. Okay, well, try not to stay too stressed off. Pessimism leads to heart disease. 7 Go to hell. He grumbled through the ribbon in his teeth. 16 eventually. See you later. I waved, walking down the hall to meet my brother. 10 I missed you so much. Ren smiled through my hair as he hugged me tightly. 221 I sighed dreamily, gripping the roots of his hair as I pulled him closer to my body. I missed you more. 51 There was an amount of relief that fled through my body, releasing all the tension I was holding before. With everything that happened at the sports festival, it was a blessing to see him again. Come in, my mom went to work a little while ago so we could watch some movies in the living room, I suggested, grabbing his hand as I lead him inside that house. Want anything from the kitchen? I asked. Leaving him in the living room, I opened the pantry, searching it for something I could make quickly. We have popcorn, green pea chips, or I don't know. 5 I turned my head to notice that he was looking down at his phone. He looked up after feeling my stare and smiled. How about some popcorn? We can share. 72 I walked over to the microwave, putting a random time, and prayed it wouldn't burn. I played with things around the kitchen before realizing I should have grabbed a bowl. 1 Hey, pick a movie while I pour this into a bowl, I yelled to him from where I was. 16 Got it. He hummed, as I heard him pick up the remote. I brought the bowl closer to the microwave as I pulled the hot bag. I quickly opened it and dumped the buttery popcorn in before running to the sink to put my burned fingertips under the cold water. You okay? He asked me as I closed the water tab. 3 I dried my hands, then grabbed the bowl, walking back over to where he sat on the couch. I plopped a few in my mouth before speaking. I just burned my fingers, but it's fine. I put the bowl down on the table next to his phone, moving one of his legs down so I could sit between them. As I reached for the bowl again, I noticed his phone light up. New message, EMI messages hidden. Unlock phone to view. 272, you and EMI text now. I wondered as I kept my face at the movie as it played. I reached into the bowl, grabbing a few pieces and moving my hand back for him to grab them. I snuck a quick look again before I sat back. He pecked the few bits and chewed them as he spoke. Yeah, she pretty nice actually. 48 I shoved a few pieces of popcorn and aggressively ate them. Really? You do say? 8 He laughed slightly, taking the bowl out of my hands, and turned his body more to look at my face. Calm down, okay? We're just friends. With you gone, I had barely anyone, so she and I have just hung out a bit. 84 You can't tell me that's not weird. I sighed, crossing my arms. I looked in the other direction, avoiding eye contact with him. He knew how to see right through me. His hand reached over to my cheek, cupping my face in his hands. I was forced to look into his gray eyes. You're overreacting. You trust me, don't you? He asked, still holding onto my face. I nodded slightly, still feeling uneasy. Then there's nothing to worry about. 103 He brought my face close to his, connecting our lips together. They blended perfectly, wrapping each other with the pink pillows we craved to feel from each other. 26 The kiss didn't grow anymore as he pulled away and pulled me into his chest. Let's watch this movie, yeah? He asked, not expecting an answer back. I hugged his arms that wrapped around my body, snuggling close to them. Despite his reassurance, I still couldn't stop myself from looking down at his phone on the coffee table. 10 I was the type of person to trust their instinct whenever it warned me that something was wrong. This felt wrong, but I was hoping that maybe this one time, I was wrong. For I'm probably overthinking the entire situation. Long-distance relationships are about trust, right? 22 After the movie, that was a cute movie, I commented, sitting up to stretch my limbs that had gone numb within that hour. It was all right. Ren shrugged, standing up to take the empty bowl to the kitchen. 6 I grabbed the remote again and browsed through the categories. Did you want to watch something or do something else? I asked, yelling a bit so he could hear me. I waited a few seconds for his response and didn't hear it. Ren. I wondered, furrowing my eyebrows together. I looked down at the coffee table to see his phone gone. I shifted my weight over to look into the kitchen to see him leaning against the counter, glued to his phone. Hey. He retorted, looking up from the screen. 64 I was talking to you. I sighed, slightly annoyed. He continued to fiddle his thumbs across his screen, still not answering my question. 33 I turned back around, not wanting to deal with his SHT at the moment. If I got mad, there was no telling how bad things could escalate. And I was getting mad. "Who's this?" Ren asked, popping up over my shoulder holding out his phone screen. Looking away from the TV screen, I looked down at his phone. 22 My eyes widen and I grabbed his phone from his hand, zooming into the photo. "Where did you find this?" I asked, looking at him from where his head stuck out over my shoulder. "Saw it online. You know this brat?" he questioned, walking around the couch to sit with me. 23 Yeah, his name is Bakugou. And he's not a brat, for your information. I rolled my eyes, tossing his phone on his lap. 16 I hated this about Ren. If he saw someone that seemed the slightest bit better than him in any factor, he would try to point out their flaws and make them seem like a horrible person. I tried to fix it, but of course, I failed. 20 I was on his team for the Cavalry battle. If you watched, then you must have seen me with him. I looked at him from the side of my eye as I flipped through the movies. "I didn't pay attention to who you were teaming with," he replied, going back on his phone. 29 How sweet of you, I mumbled under my breath. "Why did you say he's not a brat?" he brought up. I sighed, dropping the remote to my lap. "Because he's actually a pretty decent person." "How so?" "Well, he's off." I didn't know really how to explain it without him overthinking what I meant. "Honestly, he's just hardworking, okay? I don't know what you want me to say when I know you'll beach about it later." 2 I was just curious. Why can't I question my girlfriend about it? He argued, dropping his phone on his lap to face me further. "Oh God. So you could just make yourself jealous and act the victim?" I yelled, dropping my hands to my lap. I paused after realizing what I had said. 12 Looking at him, his eyes flashed with anger and slight pain. "I didn't mean that." I apologized, squeezing the grip on the remote. 48 No, you're just telling the truth. I don't know how I expected you to respond after pushing your buttons so much. I just didn't know you care about him so much. He trailed off. "I don't. Honestly. Liar. I just got upset a bit cause it feels like you're putting down my friend." "I love you." I grabbed his hand, giving it a squeeze. "I love you too." He smiled, tucking a piece of hair behind my ear. 33 Ding ding 22 My eyes darted to his phone. The screen was facing down. 13 I lightly let out a deep breath and turned back to the TV as he grabbed his phone. He shifted to the corner of the couch, leaving me in the middle. 71 Wasted apologizes. "Are we gonna watch another movie?" I wondered, scrolling through the channels again. "Oh, I actually gotta go now. Mom wants me back to help with dinner." He frowned, looking up from his phone. 63 He grabbed my face in his hands and pecked me on the lips before giving another longer one on my forehead, pressing against it with slight pressure. Grabbing his sweater, he stood up. 2 I'll come visit again when I can. He pondered, looking over to me from over his shoulder as he put on his sweater. 2 Seriously? Already? I was dumbfounded. We used to spend hours and now you're leaving after 2 hours of us seeing each other. I can go visit you also. No, it's okay. I wouldn't want you to be all alone on the train. Who knows what could happen, you know. He insisted, guiding me to the door as he walked. 8 My brother could drive me. Did you forget that? I reminded him. I didn't understand why he was being so insistent about me going out to visit him. 1 It would be nice for Senior and me to drive over there just to feel refreshed and get that sense of home again since we lived there for a while. Senior wouldn't want to drive there. Ren disagreed. I wouldn't want to drive where? Senior wondered as he walked down the stairs from his room. His headset sat around his head, hair messed up like he took them off in a rush. 5 Ren is saying you wouldn't want to drive back to the Shiketsu area, I informed him, looking up at him as he walked over. He shrugged and ran his hands through his hair, creating a mess. I don't got a problem with it. You're paying for my gas though. 24 I turned back to Ren with my eyebrows raised. See? I told you he wouldn't mind, babe. 5 Fine, just let me know ahead of time. Ren sighed, rolling his eyes slightly at me. I gotta go now before I miss the train, see you later. I love you. 109 I love you too. I waved, giving him one last kiss before closing the door. What's up with him? Senior questioned from the kitchen as I wandered back into the living room. What do you mean? I asked, fixing the pillows on the couch back to their original positions. 25 yeah. He began, biting into the banana he had in his hand. He's got a weird butt vibe to him. 32 well, I dunno. I know your powers can just his vibe or whatever, but according to mine, he was just fine. I recalled, think about the feelings he radiated. Maybe he's just tired. 19 I guess. Senior brushed it off. Come play some games with me. Single player makes me feel emo. 96 sure. I agreed, following him up to his room. Why do you have the vocabulary of a middle schooler? Why do you have the vocabulary of an old person? He shot back. I dunno, maybe because old people are always done with people's. I rolled my eyes as I sat down on the bin bag on the floor, grabbing a controller. 6 He set down the headset and grabbed his own remote. Let's settle this in a Super Mario race. He challenged. Loser is in charge of cleaning after dinner. 2 deal. Expect to lose since I am a natural-born winner. I smirked, laughing at the bet we just made. Sure, I'll let you believe that just because you're my sister. For everyone to just shut up for a second. 3 That was exactly what I needed after everything that had been going on. So where did I go? The library. Everyone stood away from each other, it was silent, and there was food nearby. 2 What was there not to love? New message, Big Toe text me when you're done. I'll pick you up. 91 I looked away from the book I was reading and replied to his text with a thumbs up. He was going to text me in an hour or so to make sure I was okay, I just knew it. 2 I put the phone down on top of the page I had been reading and looked around. I was sitting at a long table in the center of the library with my bag next to me in an empty seat. My chin was propped on my hands as I unenthusiastically looked around. Had I earned a few stares and whispers while I was here? Definitely, but I couldn't bring myself to care. It wasn't like I was here to please everyone but myself. 1 I looked back down at my book and closed it. Although I was enjoying it, I thought it would have been more realistic to grab a book from here since I was surrounded by them. Putting my book back into the bag, I grabbed it and swung it onto my shoulder, holding it at the top so it wouldn't fall. Something about the library made me feel so at home. 1 The satisfaction of when the pages skimmed each other as your fingers turned the next page of the adventure. The decomposition smell of the old vanilla musk the pages would release was a pure pleasure for my soul. 5 My fingers grazed the spine of the books as I strolled through the young adult section looking for something I would be interested in. I never had a specific genre I read or preferred. 3 When my dad was still in my life, he would lock me in my room and throw random things at me, including books and CDs. Smart for giving me CDs in a room that didn't have a TV. For being such a vile person, he wasn't the bright bulb in the dark. 2 After sighing frustratedly from not finding anything interesting, I decided to go look at the mangas and light novels. God, did those authors and illustrators know how to make me feel emotions I didn't even know I had. 41 Walking up to the small section, I couldn't help but smile lightly. I'm too easily satisfied. I stopped at the edge of the bookshelves, bending down to look at the colorful spines. Dancing my fingertips across their tops, I scanned my eyes across until I found the one I was hoping they would have. It was about a teenage boy who finds a notebook that could kill whoever's name he wrote inside. If that didn't scream interesting, I don't know what does. 233 I opened it and began reading it as I walked by the open aisles. 1 This chapter was intense. The boy agreed to work with this girl, who also had the notebook and was insanely obsessed with him, just to have some kind of magic eyesight from her. 17 The poor girl was getting played. 46 I looked up briefly to make sure I wasn't going to bump into anyone, but as I walked by an aisle, I saw a familiar shade of ash blonde. 20 I reversed, walking backwards, still holding the book in my hand, and peeked into where I saw him. He stood there, his back turned to me, looking down at what I'm guessing was a manga or something. 2 I closed my book carefully, walking up behind him, but my slickness was ruined when he turned around. What the hell are you doing here? He whisper-yelled to me. His face was a mix of confused and angry, but his emotions screamed panic. Could be asking you the same thing. I'm surprised you know how to stay quiet. I smirked, crossing my arms across my chest. Of course I do, it's a thing library. He scoffed. I noticed he had his hands behind his back. 17 he's hiding it. What you reading there? You looked invested in it. I teased, going on my tippy toes to look over his shoulder. 38 he pushed me back down and yanked the book back more so I couldn't see. None of your DMN business. Oh, but it is. I joked seriously, raising my eyebrows to add to the effect. I think you forgot that my powers are a bit better than yours. Before he could react, I grabbed his arm and kept him still, taking the manga from his hold. Oh, what's this? I looked down at the manga dramatically covering my mouth. Could this be a romance manga? 141, you demon witch. Give that back. He growled, lunging himself forward toward me. I put my hand on his chest, holding him back. No, no. Now I'm interested. This is one of the last things I'd expect you to read, but hey, everyone has their things. I shrugged, opening it. Here, read mine. I shoved the manga into his chest, keeping my eyes on the one he had been reading. Is this the new volume? He mumbled, flipping through the pages. Wow, you're actually a man of culture, I see. I gasped, looking up at him. Of course I am. I don't have bad taste, that's for sure. He smirked, carkily. 18, I guess I can agree to that. This manga is actually really cute. I sighed dreamily at the pages below me. I bent down to the ground, placing my bag next to me. Are you just gonna sit on the floor? He asked, shocked at how I shamelessly sat down. 27, well, if you see me down here, isn't that what you'd think? I asked rhetorically. Come on, just sit with me. Fine, only because you look like an idiot sitting alone. He mumbled grumpily as he sat down. Now you do too, I mumbled extra quietly. I couldn't help but think about the sports festival a few days ago. It was like we were reliving that entire moment, but just in the library. Since when have you been into these? I wondered, trying to multitask between reading and conversation. A while now. Tell anyone of this and you're dead. He warned, looking up from the book. 5, I nodded in agreement. It wasn't like I didn't know he was going to say something of those sorts. How about you? He asked, keeping his eyes down. Since I was a kid. I was alone all the time, so books were my escape and distraction. I tried to explain without giving him too much information he didn't need to know. 2, he hummed in response, keeping his attention to the word bubbles scattered across the squares. The quiet was becoming a bit too quiet for me. I reached into my bag, pulling out my phone and earbuds that were wrapped around it. Unwinding it, I put one in my ear and turned to Bakugou, holding the other out to him. Here. I gestured to the earbud in my hand. I don't want it. He stared at it disgustingly. 61, just take it. I promise my music isn't bad. I insisted, shaking it toward him. He snatched it from my hand aggressively and put it in his ear. Spotify playlist is in myheroacademia. I pressed play and put my phone down between us. Going back to my reading, I smiled. I'd be lying if I said this wasn't the idle thing I'd rather be doing all day. From the corner of my eye, I took a quick look at Bakugou. He looked much calmer, at peace. He had looked like an entirely new person when his face wasn't always in a scowl. It was kind of attractive. Wait. Did I just call him attractive? 55, no, I didn't. It's just the romance manga getting to me and the fact that I know Ren is hiding something from me. 7, right. You're a slow reader. He sighed, slamming the book shut. I'm not usually, but just got a lot on my mind recently. I sighed, closing the book with my hand still in it. Like what? You're not even that DMN interesting. He muttered. 58, oh gee, thanks for the compliment. I smiled fakely. My stomach growled as I was going to speak again. Could we get food or something and then I'll tell you? Whatever. I'm not walking anywhere far with you. He grumbled, passively mad while lifting himself off the ground. He held onto the book and lent a hand down to me, who still sat on the floor against the bookshelf. 11, thanks, I mumbled as he pulled me up. I'm gonna keep this. I motioned to the manga in my hold. Same here. Think I'll reread it again. He nodded, looking down at the black book. 2. Can I recommend you a romance one before we go? I asked, bending down to grab my bag. 12. I don't want your shitty recommendations. He frowned, looking away. You don't even give me a chance. I laughed, shaking my head. Here. I walked to the edge of the section where the romance mangas were. I put my finger to my mouth in thought as I looked for the book. Once I found it, I pulled it out and walked back to him. It about a girl who knew this guy from middle school, but they lost connection until high school. They're basically meant to be, but it's frustrating. Just read it. I explained, handing it to him. 91. Fine. Read this one. He agreed, taking the book as he handed me another one. Kid fights demons. His sister is one too. 205. I grabbed it and fanned out the pages to take a quick look. It looked interesting, and if I gave him one, it was only fair to read the one he gave me. Cool. Let's go check these out and grab some food, I thought as he walked next to me. 1. Whatever. 3. We walked to the line, checking out our 2 books individually. I offered to hold his in my book bag so he wouldn't have to carry them. After finding a restaurant close by, we walked inside and got seated by the waiter. 2. The lights inside were dim and a vibrant red. You're gonna get the curry? I asked, shocked. That's like the hottest thing on the menu. 29. Yeah, and you can't handle a bit of spice? He teased, smirking as he leaned back in his seat. 38. Want me to be honest? Hell no. Doesn't your butt blow up after eating that? I was just in shock that he didn't have explosive diarrhea after eating it. 50. What the hell? He looked at me seriously. It was replaced with a small smile, and he chuckled at my bluntness. 3. I'm gonna get it, I concluded, closing my menu. I folded my hands over the table and stared back at him. You just complained about it. He recalled, closing his menu. It'll be a new experience, right? And I'm just curious to see how it is exactly. I was open to new things, even if I was going to end up in the bathroom for hours. 1. So what were you going on about earlier? Something about there being a lot in your boring life. He remembered from our conversation in the library. Oh yeah. I sighed, holding my head in my hand that was held by the table. I'm pretty sure my boyfriend is cheating on me. 83. Okay. Break up with him. He shrugged simply. 67. I can't just do that. I disagree heavily. 38. Why not? He wondered, scrunching his face in confusion. I don't know. I groaned, laying my head on the table. I have no real proof, it's just a suspicion. Then go find your proof. I moved my eyes toward him without taking my head off the table. I can't just drive up there and follow him. Yes, you can. He challenged. 37. You know what, I'm not talking about this anymore. I laughed dryly and sat back up. Can't accept the fact that he found someone better. Bakugou wondered, crossing his arms. 156. No, it's not even that. The girl he's probably cheating on me with isn't even a good person. She's rude and doesn't care about anyone but herself. I scoffed, thinking about her. 14. And what makes you any better? You're pretty lame yourself. He joked, sarcastically. For some reason, I knew he was being serious but joking at the same time. 46. Thanks. I laughed, shaking my head. I'm just hoping the situation fixes itself, even though I know it won't. The waiter came by and stopped at our table. 2 plates of curry. He placed them in front of us and smiled. Hey, Bakugou called to him before he walked off. Could you bring a glass of milk? We're gonna need it. He smirked, looking back at me. 21. You're in, but you know that. I sighed, smiling as I grabbed my fork. And you're a beach. It works out. He grabbed his fork and shoved the curry in his mouth. 76. I looked at his face, studying it for any hints of pain from the spice. He looked back at me, just smirking in satisfaction. 2. You're insane. I shook my head. I hesitated before putting the fork in my mouth. Carefully chewing, I kept my eyes averted to my plate. My tongue was unsure of the taste. Curious of knowing what new flavor this was. Hey, actually it's not that 𝗵𝗃. I wanted to take back that statement immediately. 18. My mouth was on fire. One, it was warm and tingling with such pain I had never felt before in my life. It was as if someone was taking a WHP to my entire mouth, whacking it over and over. 9. Bakugou in front of me was cracking up at the sight of me in pain. He placed the glass of milk I didn't even know had came in front of me. I grabbed it and started chugging the entire thing. "Your thing crying," he said through heavy laughs. I put down the glass and placed my hands over my eyes, wiping the wet cries of my body yelling at me for eating such a thing. "How do you eat that? Are you like not human or?" I wondered with my eyes wide. "1. It's good. You're just weak." He put another forkful in his mouth. "Order something else, I'll pay." 36. "No, is you're paying after that thing hell." I fumed, crossing my arms. I angrily pouted at him disapprovingly. "1. You did that yourself, dumbass." He mocked after coming back from ordering my plate. "And remind me never to do that again." I breathed, shaking my head. "Ding ding, new message. Big toe, you okay? Need me to come get you?" New message, small fry, yeah, eating out and come in 15:18. The waiter brought my new plate of food and I started to eat. It was chicken katsu with a small bed of rice. 4. Guess you are that bad of a person. I trailed off, rolling my eyes as we walked out. He scoffed and shoved me. "I only stood with you the entire day because I didn't want to go home. You got that?" He hissed, rolling his eyes. 1. His sensed emotion said otherwise. "Yeah, okay." I nodded, unconvinced. "Here's your books. Tell me what you think of the one I gave you." "Sure, whatever." He grumbled, taking them away from my hand. My brother drove up, honking at me. "I'll see you tomorrow." I smiled, looking over my shoulder as I walked toward it. "Not like I have a choice," Bakugou grumbled. He gave me a short wave before shoving his free hand in his pocket and walking away. I got inside the car, throwing my bag in the back seat. "Was that Bakugou?" Senior asked, looking at him in the review mirror as we drove away. "Yeah, we bump into each other at the library and just ate together," I told him, going back on my phone to play a game. "A date?" He raised his eyebrows, looking at me from the side of his eye. 66. "What?" "No," I defended, grimly looking away. 6. "All right if you say so." He sighed, putting on his arm on the armrest between us while keeping the other on the steering wheel. 68. I looked outside the window at the sun that was beginning to go down. I reflected on the day, thinking about its every detail. I could help but chew on my lip to hide the smile that was growing on my face. Plus Bakugou was something else. "Why is that person looking at us?" I mumbled to Senior, who sat next to me in the driver's seat. He was driving both of us to school since our mom carpooled and it was raining outside. I had my arm against the window, looking outside when I noticed the pair in the car next to us were pointing to us and taking pictures. "Here." "Where?" he asked, leaning forward to look past me and at the car. They started screaming inside their car and waved at us frantically. One of them pointed at Senior and made a heart with her hands. 31. "You have a fan club now." I grinned, covering my mouth to stop from laughing too loudly. "Hey, what can I say? I get the girl's attention." He smirked. He made a turn and drove into the school's parking lot. 72. "Or maybe it's because you ate SHT in the sports festival." I beamed, getting out of the car. His smile dropped and he glared at me intensely. "I thought we said we wouldn't talk about that." He snarled, locking the car as we walked onto campus. "I know, but it's just so funny. How could I not?" "Whatever. I'll see you later," he grumbled, walking away in annoyance. I turned into the building, making my way to class. I looked outside, admiring the dark clouds and light rain that poured down from the sky. Although the sun was not out and everything seemed gloomy, I found rainy days comforting. Something about them made me feel at home and more in touch with myself. 47. "Good morning, Wyan." Ochako greeted me as I walked in. 2. "Good morning." I smiled, waved to her and Mina, who was talking with Hagakure and Ojiro. For it was nice to see everyone together and talking after a few days of not seeing each other. Except there was one person who I did see yesterday. One morning, Bakugou. I greeted. I took my straps off from my backpack and then my jacket, leaving only my long sleeve. What do you want? He badgered, his head resting on his palm. It was amusing how annoyed he seemed with it only being the morning. Nothing, just saying good morning. Why you grumpy? I wondered as I pulled out my glasses. 57, since when do you wear glasses? He questioned, turning in his seat to face me. Since forever. I just wear contacts most of the time, but I ran out this morning. I explained, pushing them up my nose bridge. 10 nerd. He smirked, making fun of me. 29, at least I look smarter now, unlike you. A smile grew on my face as the one on his fell. Oh, the satisfaction in messing with him. One morning. Mr. 𝗧𝗏 sighed as he walked in. Everyone ran to their seats, their posture upright immediately. Good morning, Mr. 𝗧𝗏. We have a big class today on hero informatics. He reveals. Everyone had that moment of right away. It seemed like UA never gave their students a break. There was always something to do each day. You need code names. Time to pick your hero identities. He continued. I felt the heavy weight on me let go as I let go of a breath I had been holding in. Something about 𝗧𝗏 made me feel on edge, although I did know he had good intentions. His emotions just gave off the vibe of I'd rather be at home. 43. This is related to the pro hero draft picks that I mentioned the last we were in class together. Normally, students don't have to worry about the draft yet. Not until their second or their year actually, but your class is different. He explained, monotoned as usual. I raised my hand, drawing all attention to me. Yes, Yuma. 𝗧𝗏 called to me. Will we be having our internships at the same time as the third years? I wondered. My brother had been talking about it at dinner the other night and I was curious to know if it was going to be the same as us. Yes, we will be. In fact, you and I will speak about that after. He noted, turning his attention back to the entire class as a whole. 1. By extending offers to first years like you, pros are essentially investing in your potential. Any offers can be rescinded if their interest in you dies down before graduation, though. 2. All the emotions in the room were high and bouncing off the walls until I felt one drop with worry and fear. I shifted uncomfortably in my seat as it crowded my mind. It was an itch, a disturbance that I couldn't reach until I learned how it was coming from. Why are you moving so much? Bakugou whispered to me. Shut up. Something is just bothering me. Behind us, Mineta hit his hand against the desk. Stupid, selfish adults. That's it. Grape head, calm your butt. Bakugou yelled to him, his face flaming with anger. Midoriya behind him jumped up and slid down into his seat. Mineta widened his eyes and shook even more, but the surge of emotions had gone down. Thanks. I sighed at Bakugou. I slid my glasses to the top of my head before slouching into my seat. Then it hit me. How did he know that emotions affect me? 92. These hero names will likely be temporary, but take them seriously or... I brought my attention back to the lecture. Again my problem with zoning out. You'll have hell to pay later. Midnight exclaimed as she suddenly walked in. It would be a total lie if I said Midnight wasn't my favorite pro hero. 46. What you pick today could be your codename for life. You better be careful, or you'll be stuck with something utterly indecent. She walked over to 𝗧𝗏, joining his side. 5. Yeah. She's got a good point. 𝗧𝗏 admitted. Midnight is going to have final approval over your names. It's not my forte. He bent down, grabbing the yellow sleeping bag he kept under his desk. 4. Typical. The name you give yourself is important. It helps reinforce your image and shows what kind of hero you want to be in the future. A code name tells people exactly what you represent. Midnight walked around handing us whiteboards and markers to write our hero names on. I had thought about this for a while. Picking my own hero name was something I had dreamed of since I first became in love with the idea of heroes. With my dad being a villain, I wanted something that would describe both sides of my family and powers positively. There was so much shame over my family as it was, so my hero name could be something that separated me from that negativity. 2. Once writing it down, I looked around at everyone as they wrote. I was curious to know what they wrote. Now, students, who among you is ready to share? Midnight bubbled after a few minutes. 𝗂𝗓𝗏 stood straight up in his seat, elegantly walking to the front with the board to his chest. With him being the first one, we were all on our toes to find out what was acceptable. Hold your breath. He grinned, head held high. The shining hero. My name is I cannot stop twinkling. Mon Amos. You can't deny my sparkle. 72. Everyone stood still, not moving an inch. My eyes followed Midnight attentively as she strolled over to 𝗂𝗓𝗏 and his board. She wasn't going to accept that, was she? It'll be better this way. She grabbed his board and began to write on it rapidly. Take out the and shorten the cannot to can't. She turned the board to us, showing the new name. It's stunning, mademoiselle. He agreed. Walking back to his desk, Mina bounced up and skipped to the front of the room. Okie dokie, let me go next. She cheered, bringing her board down. My code name, Alien Queen. Hold on. Midnight interrupted. Like that horrible monster with the acidic BLD. I don't think so. Dang it. Mina fretted, slowly dragging herself to her seat. I kind of liked her name. How was I supposed to get mine approved if that wasn't even okay? 8-ribbit. I think I've got one. Okay if I go next? Zhu asked, raising her hand for permission. Come on up. Midnight glowed. I've had this name in mind since middle school. She noted before turning the board. Rainy season hero, 𝗵𝗃𝗏. 27, that's delightful. Midnight grinned at the breakthrough of a good name. It makes you sound approachable. Her name really was adorable. I could imagine it also being a part of the Hello Kitty series for some reason. In the end, it really did fit her persona. 𝗵𝗃𝗏. 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 After a few more people had gone up, I finally built up the courage to go up myself. I walked up to the pedestal, keeping my board close to my chest. I wasn't nervous about what they would think of my name, but more of the rejection of it, since I did really like it myself. My hero name is 𝗬𝗏𝗏, I announced, turning the board. It's actually a French meteorology term that found while reading a book one day. 15, it sounds appealing. But what does it mean? Midnight asked as she walked next to me. I'm sure she could tell it was going to be a touchy subject for me. It's how you would describe fine rain falling after sunset from a sky that actually has no clouds. I thought it would fit me since I am the creation of the bad and good in my family. I have light in me but also the dark that originated from my dad. I expressed, looking down at my board. 75. My fingers squeezed the sides of the board, leaving the mark of its structure in my palms. It was strange how a simple word was able to make you feel understood and represented so perfectly. Never in my life had I connected with a word that wasn't even in my day-to-day language. It's excellent. Truly encaptures how much of a gift you are, Wyan. Midnight complimented, placing her hand on my shoulder. Her voice was gentle and quieter than its usual volume. 20 UA and their staff knew of my brother and I's upbringing. They made it aware to both of us that if we needed support and guidance, they would have it ready for us. We declined since we both had 2 years in a mental hospital. Neither of us had wanted to go back to that experience or anything near it. 6. King Explosion Murder. 50. I blinked a couple of times, joining reality after my small sentimental moment. I'm gonna say that one's a little too violent. Midnight commented, bursting his bubble. Here. What do you mean? He screamed, dropping the board face down. Why don't you be Explosion Boy? Kirishima joked, making Kaminari and I chuckle secretly at each other. You shut up, weird hair. Bakugou cursed, pointing to him. Or I'll show you exactly why murder should be in my name. He stomped back to his seat, slamming the board back on his desk. I spun in my seat, leaning forward to look at the board. Creative. Totally sounds like the name of someone who I want to save me. I nodded, sarcastically. You shut your mouth, you DMN witch. It's a great name. He argued, glaring at me. Well, just put Lord instead of King and I'm sure she'll love it. I joked, sitting back into my seat. All we have left is young Bakugou, who needs to rethink his, and Ida. Oh, yes, and Midoriya, too. Midnight thought as she went through her mental list of people who'd gone. I played with the wood marks engraved into my desk waiting for someone to go up next. The tips of my fingers curved into them, feeling the rough texture. I shouldn't have thought about this, but Bakugou kind of smelled good. It wasn't overwhelming, much like his personality, because that 𝗧𝗕 was loud, but stop that. I told myself as I rubbed my eyes to distract myself from my previous thoughts. I'm still in a relationship technically, so thinking of another guy was clearly not okay. Paying my attention back to my classmates who were sharing their names, I couldn't help but be shocked at the one Midoriya chose for himself. Really, Midoriya? Mineta thought aloud. You sure about that? Kaminari questioned also. Yeah, man, remember, that could be your name forever. Kirishima tried to ask to make sure that's really what he had wanted. Right. I used to hate it. But then, something changed. I guess. Someone taught me that it could have a different meaning. And that had a huge impact on how I felt. So, now I really like it. He smiled purely to himself. Deku. That has to be my code name. 29. I smiled myself after hearing his take on it. He took something that was meant to be an insult, a shame to him, and made it his own. He took back the thing that had been pulling him down for who knows how long. Lord Explosion Murder. Bakugou slammed the board back down, looking at Midnight intensely for her response. 46. I slapped my hand against my forehead a bit harsher than I had meant to. Try again. You will have to figure this out yourself. Midnight sighed shamefully. I didn't think he'd take me seriously on my suggestion, but it was nice to know that he trusted my opinions. Now that everyone's decided on their hero names, we can go back to talking about your upcoming internships. Mr. Aizawa introduced. Midnight had woken him up a few seconds ago and he still had the sleeping bag around his waist. Someone needed to give this man a vacation. 12. They'll last for 1 week. As for who you'll be working with, those of you who were on the board will choose from among your offers, everyone else will have a different list. You have a lot to think about. Sadly, I hadn't made it on the list, but it was expected. 3. There are around 40 agencies across the country who've agreed to take on interns from your class. Each agency has a different specialty that its heroes focus on. Keep that in mind. Mr. Aizawa went around passing the papers down each row as the bell rang. I didn't take the time to look at mine until I passed the papers back to Shoji. Imagine my face when I looked down and only saw my brother's name on the list. Yuma, come here. Mr. Aizawa called me to the front. 5. Taking my paper with me, I got up and walked over to him. Boy, did I have questions. I see you noticed your list. He pointed out the confused expression on my face. Yeah, I did. I'm just a bit confused as to why my brother's name is on here. I questioned, pointing to it as I spoke. Since your abilities are different than the rest, we decided it was best you internship with your brother where he will be. He explained. Where is he interning? I hesitated in asking. Senior once never told me about this unless they maybe told him not to say anything. With your uncle's agency. We're aware you both may not speak with him, but with your mother's permission we were able to convince him of letting you two shadow him. He revealed, taking a deep breath at the end of his sentence. Oh, okay. Thank you for explaining. I bowed before turning back to my desk. I looked down at the paper as I thought. I hadn't seen my Uncle Karasu in years, nor did I even know he had his own hero agency. My mom never spoke of him, which had been strange since she always spoke some gossip about our family. 6. Why the face? Didn't have what you want. Bakugou wondered mockingly as I walked over to my desk. I handed him the paper as he put down his own. See for yourself. Here. He flipped the paper front and back before looking back up at me. But this is just your brother's name. Yup. We're interning with an uncle who I have not spoken to in who knows how long, so it should be fun, right? I laughed, half-heartedly. I took the paper back from his desk, taking a quick look at his as I did. You have some good people on there. I complimented. Who wouldn't want me as an intern? He thought, being the usual cockiness he was. 2. I wouldn't. I shrugged, earning a slap on my arm. Oh, okay, sorry for being honest. I laughed, putting my hands up in surrender. 10 reaching into my bag, I pulled out the costume form I still hadn't worked on. With everything that had been going on recently, completing the form was the last thing on my mind. I wrote small notes, a long-sleeve bodysuit, including the color navy since it was my favorite, and have a 𝗬𝗏𝗧𝗵 neckline. Other than that, I hadn't even started a basic sketch. 3 Hey, mind helping me with this? I turned, asking Bakugou. Yes. He spat, turning back again. Great so. I said, rolling myself over to his desk to face him. I haven't created my hero costume and I need help. Easiest SHT in the world. Let me see. He snatched the paper from my hand, looking at the notes made on it. 2 He began to sketch out a figure and the thing I wanted with a few of his own ideas. It was long sleeve, the neckline being the same as noted, but the only thing added seemed to be 2 fabric pieces crisscrossed across the lower torso. 25 some shading had been done to represent each of the colors, but yet he labeled them to the side. I sat back in my seat watching his face as he worked. Even when working on something, did his face have a scowl? But something about it made it difficult to look away. His eyes were the things that I'd been caught onto the most. One, they were the most vibrant of red. Pools of fire that were too hot to touch but nice to look at from afar. He looked up, making direct eye contact with me, causing both of us to freeze. The stare stood. Our eyes never leaving sight of each other no matter how hard we tried to. They were magnets, attached, difficult to pull apart. 32 His guard had been put down for these few seconds, as so had mine. There was a side of him that I noticed he had with me. The sense of familiar warmth. A figment of something I'd seen before but couldn't pinpoint where that place could have been. He gave off a warmth of familiarity. But we looked away. Here's your DMN paper. He shoved it on my desk aggressively, turning back to his original position. Thanks, I mumbled, spinning it around to look at it. It was messy, marks all over it. The design was still clear though, better than I thought it would turn out. If I had done it, it would have just been a stick figure. 6 Wow, this turned out really well. Thank you. I smiled, looking up from the desk. Keeping his eyes away from me, he sat crossed-armed looking at his internship list. Yeah, whatever. I smiled quietly to myself, looking back down at it. Excuses. You have everything. Yeah, I think so. I closed the trunk to his car, closed, meeting him at the front seats. He and I were ready to leave for our internship as the rest of my class was with 𝗧𝗏. Before leaving, 𝗧𝗏 gave a rundown, a spiel of details and rules I'd be required to follow during the time of the internships. If I'm being honest, I was only half listening since my sleep schedule is out of wax. 38 Try not to hit the streetlights this time while turning. I cautioned jokingly, reclining my seat down. Maybe I will. Maybe I won't. He shrugged, side-eyeing me as he drove. 29 I shoved his shoulder playfully, a laugh following after the action. I'd been facing him as I went to read the manga I brought with me. Being transparent, I never expected the manga Bakugou gave me to me as compelling as it was. There was action after action and of course, the occasional comedy. 𝗏𝗏, my brother called, pushing the book into my face. 1-0. What? I yelled, rubbing my nose where the book slapped me. I'm at the coffee shop drive-thru. What do you want? He asked, waiting for my response. 6 I searched for the last text box I left off on before realizing I hadn't responded. Those hot pour-over coffee but cold. 9 He stared at me before shaking his head and turning to the speaker. An iced coffee, medium, please. I put the book down and stared straight up at the ceiling. Curiously had struck me heavily with how our uncle was, who he really was. For starters, he was from our dad's side. Tall, hard facial features, and the most important thing, he was a dark caster. 52 here. Senior waved, handing me the clear cup with the medium-toned goodness kept inside. Thanks. I pulled my seat back to the original recline setting. What are you thinking about so intensely? Senior could easily be summarized in one word: invested. He took time with the things he did, putting full effort and passion into them. His priorities were no problem, set straight no matter what other obstacles came. He is one of the best people to know. How do you think 𝗬𝗂𝗧 will be? I questioned, taking a sip of my coffee. 7. Nothing like Dad if that's what you're worried about. He said, putting his own coffee in the cup holder. Mom wouldn't let us near him if he was. You know that? Yeah, I do. I sighed, knowing he was right as usual. Did you know they wanted me to intern with you? Yeah, they told me a while back ago and had me drive out to his agency beforehand to make sure it was okay with him. So you've seen him? I asked, more interested in the conversation. The last time I had seen him was when I was maybe, he began. Tall man, dark hair, green eyes, tattoos. Seems tough and mean but is pretty chill. 140. It was funny since Senior took after our dad the most. It was almost as if he were describing himself beside the eye color. But people called us twins with a large age gap, so it was a reminder that I also looked like our dad. 25. Not that I had been a big fan of that compliment for certain reasons. You say that, but the guy sounds scary. I laughed, lifting my legs to the side of the seat. You'll like him. I'm sure you'll be able to control yourself more with his help. Dark powers are harder to control and I can't help you with that. I knew inside it bothered him that he couldn't train me with my powers. With him having taken after our mom who was a light caster, he had it the easy way out. He was lucky enough to not have our dad's doings impact him. Hopefully. It gives me headaches sometimes from how overwhelming everything is. I rubbed my temples while speaking. You're basically a magnet that repels against itself. It's bound to happen. He shrugged, turning into the hotel parking. I took off my seatbelt and climbed out of the car, stretching my limbs out. Tired, that's how I felt right now, and it was only the afternoon. Leave your things here. The agency is down the street, so we'll walk and then walk back here when we're done. Senior directed. All right. I'm taking my coffee. I reached back into the car, grabbing the cup and skipping to him as he walked off. Skip the walk, we're here, Senior announced, looking up at the building. Really? I couldn't tell. I mocked sarcastically at the sign that read 𝗬𝗧𝗧 Agency. 7. It was different than I expected, smaller for that matter. Made sense though, since people don't trust casters as much as pro heroes. The building had to only be 2 stories. As we walked in, I recognized the same Victorian-style decor that our mom had bits of in the house. It must be some kind of caster thing. I walked to the couch that was near the window and sat down, drinking the leftovers of my coffee. I let them know that we're here, Senior said, walking toward me. He took in front of me with his arms crossed. Alrighty. I sighed, continuing to finish my drink. My straw hit the bottom of the cup, making a loud sound since there was no more liquid. Stop doing that. Senior scolded. I looked up at him, doing it again but louder. 24. He warned, getting upset with me. 38. I did it again until he took my cup, leaving just the straw in my mouth. I took it out and frowned. There was still some left. 7. You two are the same as I remember. Senior turned around, allowing me to see who spoke. Exactly how I imagined him and how Senior described him. Nervousness ran through my system. My hands grew sweaty, breathing became heavier. 2 Senior's hand appeared in front of my face as he helped me stand up. He looked down at me, knowing this was making me feel uncomfortable. It's nice to see you again, 𝗬𝗬𝗧. My brother greeted us as we walked toward him. Same to you, Senior. He smiled before turning to me. Nice to see you after many years. Yeah, I could say the same, I mumbled, bowing my head slightly. Let's get straight to it. Follow me. He directed, walking to the stairs. I hated stairs even though we had them in our own house. Practically had to crawl up them. 3 Senior, as a third year I know you have almost full control over your abilities. I don't doubt that. As for I know your mother has tried and failed. 𝗬𝗬𝗧 explained, looking at us from over his shoulder. Yeah, Sen and my mom are light casters, so they can't help me with the dark part of my powers and controlling the balance. I stammered off. 2 We walked into what I was guessing his office. There were bookshelves, family photos, and many windows. I found myself looking at the larger photo with my dad in it. You like reading still? 𝗬𝗬𝗧 wondered, walking up to a bookcase. Does she? Senior scoffed. I hit his arm and glared at him. Yeah, I do, I answered for myself. He pulled out 3 books before turning around and walking back to me. Read these 3. They are books specifically made for casters. Normal people cannot touch or light casters. He explained as he placed them on the table where a sofa was. What are they about? I thought, walking over to them and opening one. You're a catalyst, natural with bi-neutral abilities. Each one goes into detail about what that means and how to go about using your powers to fit you. He walked over to his desk and sat down. 33. The pages were older than all of us, that was for sure. Before I could turn a page myself, they found out stopping on a new chapter themselves. Don't worry, they do that. Karasu chuckled after seeing my panicked face. Finish those by the end of the day. Senior and I will return by then. He concluded before walking out with my brother and leaving me there alone. 13. Once I heard their footsteps become distant, I got up and walked to the frame that I felt was staring at me. I'd never seen my dad genuinely smile before. He must have been at least 20 in the photo. Before he craved only power and lost all of his humanity in him. I stared directly at it, feeling my stomach curl. I felt nothing toward him, which terrified me. I tried to convince myself that I hated him, which was true, but a small part of me hoped there was still good in him. I wanted to love him but couldn't. 26. There was too much he had done to be reversed. Thinking that was enough wasting time, I turned back around to the book. Placing it on my lap, I began to read. Catalyst, a term for a caster who was once a natural, but turned dark. It's unknown whether they have the same powers and potential a natural does. During their first few months as a dark caster, they will experience an uncontrollable draw to fire. 32 explains a lot now reading about it. I would beg my mom to start a campfire in the backyard because I thought it was pretty to watch. 27 Something about the color and the way a flame moved attracted me to it and still does occasionally. 4 powers, elemental manipulation. They are easily able to control the elements and the weather without hesitation. Their go-to element and weapon of choice is fire. They can start fires by accident called the wake of fire during the first few months as a dark caster. Time control. They are able to control and freeze time, but it's very rare if they can. Reality warping. They are able to manipulate reality with ease. Celting. They are able to speak non-verbally with other casters that possess the same ability. Celting is extremely rare. Most casters aren't seen to do it. Only very powerful casters. 10 Fire was never my forte to use, which would be the light side in me. Although I found it appealing, I found it dangerous to use carelessly. My dad used it on me as torture. 127 The one that caught my eye was Celting. In the past, my dad had done it with me when my mom was around. It was as if his thoughts became apparent into my own. One I've always tried with my mom or senior, but it would never work. Most likely why the book said it was extremely rare. Picking up the next book, I lowered myself to the ground and onto my stomach. Natural, a term for a caster who has magnified or superior powers compared to regular casters. They are able to do many things, but in the grand scheme of it all, no one knows exactly what their powers fully are nor the extent of them. A natural can control the elements and the weather. Not much is said as to which of the two is stronger, but in the caster world, a natural is considered the strongest of all of the casters, virtually omnipotent. 3 All these terms were beginning to give me headache. It made no sense to me how I was both a catalyst and natural when these books made it seem like a caster could only be one type. Their abilities were the exact same, with the weather and elements being a natural's go-to. Now for the part one wanted to avoid the most, the types of casters. Types. Dark, a term for casters who turn dark and use their powers for evil. Cataclysts, sirens, and evos are examples of dark casters. Appearance. Dark casters have golden cat-like eyes that glow all the time. Their skin is ice cold to the touch. 2 Ren would always try to warm me up, but he never understood me when I told him it wasn't possible. Summer was not my thing at all. 41 Light, a term for casters who are claimed for the light and use their power for good. Appearance. Light casters get fluorescent, glowing green eyes that change shade depending on the caster's mood. Skin feel warm to the touch as if the sun were a constant follow to them. 7. My eyes, one of my biggest insecurities, even if they didn't glow the way the book states. 2. I was able to control it enough to keep my natural eye color. As for my brother, his eyes had the green tint to them that I found to be truly appealing. 14. His skin was the same as mine yet was always warm. He and I were the complete opposite yet visually looked the same. I slammed the last book closed, groaning as I dropped my head to the ground. "We're back," Senior sang, walking back in with 2 bags of food. "One, hey," I breathed, throwing my arm into the air to signal where I was. I could hear the sound of the bags crinkling as he put them down. "French fries." 3. Did you read them all, Wyan? Karasu asked as he looked down at my body sprawled out on the ground. I pulled myself up, reaching into the bag and sitting back on the sofa instead of the floor. Popping a fries into my mouth, I nodded. "Yeah, a lot of information. Do you understand your powers better?" Senior asked, sitting next to me. I can say I understand what they could do, but I feel like there's questions I have. I directed my statement more toward my uncle. "Like what?" "Maybe I could answer," he replied, sitting in the one-seater across us. "Reality warping." I began, eating another fry. "I've done it before, you know, on small thing, but the book talked about changing entire rooms, making people hear things that weren't there, and even changing memories. 1. There was a sudden shift of discomfort in my brother. More on edge, careful of his actions and words. 116. Yes, there has been known use of it in that way. In what ways have you used it?" he curiously asked. He looked at my brother, giving him a look that I didn't dismiss so easily. 4. Turned a piece of ice into a hammer, changed my pencil into mascara. The usual. I trailed off, laughing slightly. 7. So you've never used it on people? Karasu questioned, almost in confirmation. I furrowed my eyebrows and looked between him and my brother. There was something they knew that I didn't. 1. No. Why are you guys doing that? I was beginning to become defensive. No reason. Senior shrugged, pretending to return normal. He knew I could sense his emotions. 44. A trait I learned from our dad. I think we're done for the day. Tomorrow bring your costumes and you 2 will fight against me. Karasu instructed, standing up to walk us out. 2 against 1. I wondered out loud. Yeah, let me tell you, uncle, she's small but packs a punch. Senior laughed, putting his arm on my head. I rolled my eyes, moving his arm off my head. 1. He had gotten our dad's genes of being freakishly 185 centimeters tall. 21. I'll take note of that. See you both tomorrow at 7 a.m. He waved as we walked out. The sun was falling slowly, glowing its appealing, vibrant colors. Oh, to be admired as much the sun had been from thousands of people. 12. See, that wasn't bad, Senior smiled, putting his arm around me. 4. Side-eyeing him, I let out a deep breath. Yeah, I guess you're right. Like I've said many times, I'm always right. He insisted, being full of himself. 2. I said I guess, don't take it to your head. I laughed, shaking my head. I felt my stomach growl a bit as we walked. Could we get room service? Those fries weren't enough. Okay, order me something too. I'm gonna shower once we get in, he said as we approached his car. 42. Grabbing our things, we made our way inside the hotel to check in. Our room was on the 4th floor, which made me tired just thinking about it. 10. Luckily there was an elevator that I gladly took. Getting settled in, Senior hopped in the shower while I looked at the menu. Deciding on sushi for the both of us, I ordered and sat on the bed while I waited. Whoever was next to us was blasting music louder than they should have been. 40. It was topping off the headache that had already been pounding my brain in an excruciating way. Who the hell is having a party in a hotel room? Senior fumed, shaking the towel against his wet hair. 4. I dunno, I don't have X-ray vision. I shrugged, going back to my book. 3. Could you go next door and tell them to lower it? He wondered as he brushed his hair out in the bathroom. 42. I dropped my book to my lap and groaned. Why me? I complained. 1. Because I have to pay for the food with my card when it comes and you're doing nothing. Just go. He snapped, waving his comb toward the door. I grabbed a blanket, wrapping it around my shoulders since it was cold and my dinosaur pajamas were not doing me justice. 19, making me go myself. What a brother. I grumbled, stomping outside. Better give me extra sushi. I opened the door and walked a few meters to where our neighbor's door was. I let out a heavy sigh before lifting my hand to their door and pounding it loud enough for them to hear through the obnoxiously loud music. I turned around and looked at the other doors around it as I waited for it to open. I heard the open swoosh signaling it was open. Hi, sorry, could you maybe? I turned around and froze. I stared at him before slapping my hand against my forehead. Out of all people it could have been. Oh, what the F are you doing here? I whined, hugging the blanket tighter. 51. I wasn't surprised for some reason, yet something told me it wasn't going to be any normal person. I could ask you the same thing, 𝗵𝗃𝗁𝗏. He snapped. He looked down at my pajamas, breathed and smirked. Dinosaurs. 48. I'm not doing this. Night. I pushed him into his own room and shut the door, walking back into my own. 14. I shut the door and turned to face my brother, who was stuffed his face with sushi. He froze, staring at my angered eyes that tinted different colors of gold and green. It was the mix of being tired, annoyed, and hungry. Did you say hi to Bakugou for me? He laughed nervously. 101. I walked up to him, snatching the chopsticks and plate of food before walking back to my bed. 3. You lost your sushi rights. Answer this question for me, YIN. For Senior and I were at Karasu's agency again for what would be our first official day of the internship. I wondered as I played with the straps on my torso from my costume. 6. It had been my first time wearing it, and boy did I love it. 13. When first looking at it, I thought it might have been a bit too tight and difficult to move in, but it wasn't, thankfully. The colors complement each other well, and overall it was made beautifully. I would have to thank Bakugou later for drawing it and recommending a costume designer for that, but 6. Have you ever tried to use flames? You're fully capable of doing so, he noted as we walked into the empty room. 5. No, I haven't. I barely use any of the actual abilities unless it's just the black matter stuff, I admitted, my hands up and down my arms in nerves. For supposedly being a powerful caster, I was a wimp of showing it. We'll change that. How about you, Senior? How much of the elementals around you do you use? All of it. I always try to get YN to use them, but she insists on using the basics. The sports festival was the first time I'd ever seen her actually use effort. Senior laughed, learning a shove from me. 2. I just don't find a need to, I answered honestly. Never had I felt an enormous amount of need to win or come out on top in a situation. 8. Maybe because deep inside I just didn't even have the motivation to get out of bed at times. 67. I respect that. Just know they may be help in a dire situation. Karasu's walking came to a stop. I don't have much care for this room, it's a spare. You two will fight me in here. But there is barely anything to work with in here, Senior argued as he noticed the lack of elements and weather that was usable for him. When in battle, you never know where you will be. Perhaps in a cave, maybe in the snow. What if it's a robbery? Karasu tested, giving us the many examples. We need to be ready for any situation. I nodded, understanding the point. Regret went through my system. Not bad regret. Regret that I judged our uncle based on bad experiences from my own dad, his brother. 7. Exactly. Let's begin. Taking no time, sent a gust of air towards us, making us stumble back. Working with my brother was going to be difficult since he and I always practiced against each other. Above the many cons, light and dark casters were not made to work with each other. Since being a combination of both, it was my job to find the balance meant for the both of us. 3. Sen, he just gave us free wind, use it. I directed, rushing him. What do you think I'm doing? He snarled. Throwing his hand forward, the wind swirled around and back at Karasu. My leg angled up in an attempt to hit the back of his head, a weak spot for any person. Before my foot even came centimeters to it, his hand grasps it, holding it tightly with a squeeze. He turned, looking down at me. You're a physical fighter. Kickboxing. One singular eyebrow raised as he thought. 13. 6 years. Never answer your opponent's questions. His opposite fist connected with my body, colliding with one breathtaking punch. It's an attempt to distract you. 5. I fell to the ground, clenching the cloth around my diaphragm. My lungs spasmed sporadically, making it difficult to breathe. My fist slammed into the ground. Get up. You're not weak. You idiot, get up. 20. Looking up from the ground, Senior was against a wall holding his nose. His eyes watered unintentionally as his body reacted to getting hit. Karasu's back was toward me, so I took my chance. My hands pushed off the ground, guiding me forward. When I was a few meters away, I lowered my fingertips to the ground and threw them up. Black matter slid across the ground, traveling rapidly toward its destination. As it swirled up his body, he stiffened, unable to move. You got me. Smart move. He complimented. I smiled, letting my guard down. But it wasn't good enough. His fingers curled around the black, shattering like glass. The sound of it colliding with the ground fell with my smile. Shatter. My brother tried to take another hit, but it was no use. Karasu threw his arms out, shaking the floors with earthquake-like waves. Our bodies jolted, smashing against the corresponding walls behind us. A sharp ringing ran through my ears. White spots showed up in my darkened vision. Liquid dripped from my nose like water from a faucet. Lungs felt as if there were bruises covering each inch of them. For you two did well. Karasu congratulated pitifully. You're done for the day. Get yourselves cleaned up and ice your wounds. Be ready for tomorrow. 22. My eyes were closed, but the sound of his shoes clicking vibrated in my head with each step he took out the room. What the F did we just get ourselves into? How are you even breathing after that? I groaned, holding the ice pack to my body. There were obvious bruises under my costume. I had never seen such an ugly yellow-purple splosh on my skin before. I'm pretty sure my nose is broken or sprained. Senior laughed, pointing to the 2 napkins sticking out of his nostrils. 20. That's a look. You should keep it. I joked, making myself laugh, then flinch in pain. 2. We strolled down the sidewalk as cars drove by rapidly. It was silent but comfortable silence. How are you feeling? Senior asked abruptly, out of worry. Fine is an understatement, even for the both of us. My shoes kicked the pebbles on the ground as we strolled, distracting myself from the soreness. No, that's not what I meant. He stopped walking, making me pause and turn around to look at him. His eyes stood averted to the ground, deep in thought. You stopped for a second mid-fight. I hadn't thought he saw that. Nor did I want to talk about what he saw. A moment of weakness. That's all. I insisted. He looked up at me, his face stiff with seriousness. That's not what it was. He shook his head, pulling the napkins out his nose. Stop doing that to yourself. Stop doing what? Stop acting like what happened to you doesn't exist. You constantly make jokes about it, but moments like what happened earlier tell me otherwise. You yell at yourself for the things you can't achieve, and we both know it's a habit you learned through Dad. He rushed out, throwing his hands around as he spoke. 53 knew the ins and outs of how I felt, when, and why. It was something he learned after taking the lead in being an important figure in my life. Did I like that? No. Maybe sometimes. Because at times I felt like he was trying to fix something that couldn't be fixed. Too late to be fixed. Joking about it is all I know. I trailed off, curling my fingers into my palms. I don't act like it doesn't exist, I chose to ignore it. And yeah, maybe some habits I have are because of him. But they work, right? I shrugged, not knowing what else to say. 1. You're the only one who thinks that. It's messing with your growth. What you did fighting against Karasu was amazing, but you let one mess up ruin the entire thing. He sighed, shaking his head with annoyance. Because I know I could do better. It was true. I knew I could because I was capable of it. Dad knew it too. That's why he treated me the way he did. He didn't love you. 132. His face showed regret. It was insensitive what he said. But he thought that maybe somehow, it would allow me to grow. He didn't love you and he never will. Even after years of being stuck in a psych ward, you're still stupid enough to believe that. He continued, never leaving eye contact with me. 24. I nodded my head, chewing on my tongue, holding back my tears. Don't cry. 41, see, you're doing it again. He frustratedly pointed out. What do you want me to do? Here. I stormed toward him, not holding back my emotions. You're over here pointing out each and every one of my imperfections for what? Is this what you want? I pointed to my eyes that glowed the opposite colors of gold and green. 6 I always hid them. And the real reason was because I was ashamed. Where's your oh so great solution, him? Tell me, because obviously, I haven't found one. I exploded. My eyes burned into his green ones, watering at the sight. Being both light and dark was a curse. It felt like one. Never truly belonging in one or the other. Never being fully accepted by other casters because I was tainted with the darkness. 16 That's just how it worked. Once your son or daughter was claimed for the darkness, they were no longer your child. They were thrown out, disowned. Exactly what happened with my dad and his family. 6 The only reason it hadn't happened with me was because there were no other combination casters. There hadn't been in years. So one knew what to do with me when it happened. I don't have one, Senior whispered. He was in pain. He fought a battle in his own head of so badly wanting to have me find a place where I fit because he got so lucky finding his own. But he couldn't do it. It frustrated him. And that's okay. No one asked you to try to save me. I whispered back, whipping the stray tear that ran down his face. He was always the emotional one out of the two of us. I sighed, running my hands through my hair. I wish I was able to avoid this conversation altogether. Can we go to the room now? People are staring. I mumbled, grabbing his arm and pulling him to the hotel. 26, knock knock, I'm coming in. I walked through the door, ignoring the fact that he hadn't responded. I didn't give you a thing answer, Bakugou argued. He shut the door behind me and followed me inside. It's not like you argued against it either. I pointed out as I flopped onto his bed. 15, why are you here? He questioned, frustratedly. I dunno, I remembered you were here so I came to bother. I was only being honest since he was asking. I was also curious to see how he had been doing. Where's your 𝗵𝗵𝗏 brother? He wondered as he closed the door. He and I are weird terms right now, I explained without giving too much detail. You never told me why you're in the same hotel as us. I brought up, sitting up against the headboard. The internship. Don't get any weird ideas in that empty head of yours. He scoffed, sitting on the couch in front of his bed. Who you interning with? From the last I remembered, he didn't tell me his final decision. Best jeanist. One I left out a small laugh, mentally regretting it after. How's that going? Knowing Bakugou, he was most likely giving him some form of sass. 𝗵𝗏𝗏 guy. He gave me some stupid lecture about reforming me. Already regretting this entire week, his full of essay, he complained, rolling his eyes in the end. How about you? You look like essay. Thanks, I feel like it too. I started, laying on my back at the end of the bed. It was the only way I could lay without it hurting. Senior and I had fought against our uncle and this dude swept the floor with us. I rubbed the bruise on my stomach as I spoke. 2 I'd rather take that than some stuck-up pro talking CRP. How bad was it? He whined before asking. I enjoyed these small conversations we had. Bad. Got punched in the rib, nose was bleeding, and I swear I had super hearing. I laughed, thinking about how much of a rag doll I probably looked. 2 Your brother. He wondered. Not as bad, I think. Few jabs to head, mostly his nose. The nerve that guy has sometimes. I grumbled, covering my face with my hands. Why you say that? 1 He had the audacity to point out everything wrong with me because of something I did. I just hate how some things he tries to make me realize things in the worst ways. I ranted, thinking about the argument. 2 Well, was he right? Bakugou questioned, looking at me. His face was upside down from where I laid. His eyes caught my attention right away. 3 rubies. 8 I don't want to answer that. I retorted, looking away. You can't always run away from your 𝗵𝗏𝗏 problems. He argued against my statement. 87 Yes, I can, I answered too quickly. It's not even that I just. You're running away from the problem. He finished off. 5. Don't act you don't do the same, I remarked. All of us do it. I think I just may do it too often. You're kidding me, right? You sound stupid as F for saying that. He insulted, shaking his head. Did everyone think they had an input in my life? I don't get it. 4. Ding ding, new message. Ren, hey, how's the internship? Read 7:38 p.m. 40. Here you answer. I threw my phone at Bakugou, giving him full power to do anything. I didn't care at this point. 59. This your boyfriend? He asked, pointing to the small circle showing his picture. I nodded, carefully turning on my stomach. Fing pasty face, how does he look like a DMN ghost? He mocked, zooming in on the photo. 73. His quirk. It's called Phantom. Basically, he can mess with souls dead and alive and use them to his advantage. I explained, playing with the pillow next to me. Gives him the white hair and eyes. 54. Hey, look up. He called. I looked up to see him taking a photo. I lifted my hand up mid-photo as Bakugou made a middle finger. 98. I should go see him. I thought aloud. Don't care. Do whatever you want. He bleated, throwing me back my phone. 1. I don't get you. Sometimes you're kinda decent to me and then you're an but. I hissed, grabbing my phone and blanket. See you tomorrow. 10. I closed the door behind me and walked back into my room, straight into bed. I was tired of today. I recommend the Spotify playlist for this. 51. Let's talk about yesterday's fight. Karasu began. He was either going to compliment or bash us with all the things that needed to be improved. Senior, you need to make your first move quicker. You hesitated and watched for quite too long. My eyes gazed over to him, creating slight eye contact before looking back down at my lap. It was best if I said nothing. But if he pointed my problem, avoidance. His was hesitation. Yes, I did. I'll work on that. He nodding, knowing it wasn't the first time he had heard that comment. If my thing was avoidance, then his was definitely hesitation. You and I will talk separately. Karasu directed toward me. Senior, take this day to do your own research in my office. We will be back soon. I stood up from the chair, walking to Karasu at the door. He guided me outside, where it was approaching the later afternoon. People made their way home by shoving through crowds, speeding by in their cars, while students grouped up after school talking about who knows what. Observation was a skill I picked up on after keeping to myself for so long. One Karasu walked next to me, his hands in the deep pockets of his trench coat. You're a great fighter, much like your father, although he put his skills to the worse, as you know. 1. I'm very aware. I acknowledged quietly. My hands held onto their opposite elbows, keeping them close to my body. What goes through your mind during a fight against another opponent? He questioned, looking down at me from his shoulder. Letting that question sink in, I pondered what my answer could possibly be. I didn't want to dwell too much on what it could be, but I didn't want to under-answer the question in a way that I couldn't get any feedback with. My next move and possibly the outcome of it, I answered after a few seconds. I had the power to accidentally kill something along with the many other people whose quirk had the same risk. Thinking ahead was strugglesome but necessary most of the time. What if you guess wrong? He continued, throwing a possible outcome. My eyebrows raised slightly, not expecting a question like that. Then I'm fed. I laughed, not knowing what else to say. 3. Karasu chuckled himself, enjoying the fact that I was openly honest. I'm not asking you to predict the future. Don't, because you never know what possible changes could happen. He advised. This doesn't feel like we're talking about just using my powers anymore. I doubted. Who knows, maybe he was trying to give some real advice. Maybe Senior told him about our argument and the habits I had. Either way, I still appreciated it. Take it how you'd like. He responded optimistically. You mentioned before that you haven't used reality warping that often. I haven't, I confirmed. We walked past a park, taking a turn directly into it. They made slightly uncomfortable, yet it was bearable. Why's that? Is that because you don't understand its full capabilities? He hypothesized, attempting to figure out the reason. As we sat down on a picnic bench, I nodded. Yeah, honestly. I know I can change objects into anything I'd like except living beings. But that's about it. It was such a broad idea. There was much to it that I had little to zero grasp of. Did you know that it could be used on vast areas? He quizzed, eyebrows scrunching in the center of his face. You mean like an entire environment? I thought. He nodded, answering my questions. I think I read something about that, but I'm honestly not too sure. Using that power, you are able to move yourself, and another person if you build up that power, to an entirely new area. That could be the ocean, your house, the States, anywhere. Of course, that would mean using a large amount of power that you have not obtained. He explained, going into a deep detail. 11 I knew there were casters able to do that, but it's just insane. Moving someone to an ocean. I spat out in total amazement. It's possible. He nodded his head, slowly agreeing with my shocked expression. 5 How do you build up your abilities to have the capacity to do that? Pushing myself already leaves me almost empty. I was curious. Having an amount of power that greatly seemed so out of reach and plain insane. Through constant practice. Not overworking like I feel you and your brother may do, but simple practices like moving objects across a room or yourself if you're able to achieve that right now. He shared, giving tips of what he had done himself. I guess I have new things to work on. I huffed, slouching down on the table. I looked around for a moment at the kids running up the jungle gym, sliding down the slides with smiles. All I could think about was that day. You can also use it on people. I jerked my head toward him quickly. On people? Yes, but it's very dangerous if you use when you're unstable. He warned, his voice becoming more stern. When casters were first being exposed, powerful casters, like yourself, would help with erasing the memory of normal people finding out. 25 Would they erase that singular memory or their entire memory of events with the caster? I interrogated, digging deeper into the idea. Something about it struck interest so deeply in me. 7 Just of the memory of them finding out. But if you use it when your emotions are unstable, you could accidentally erase more than wanted. He informed. For some reason, I felt his words were based off of experience. It wasn't in my business to ask, so I didn't. 28 Are you able to see a person's memories while doing it? I asked, propping my chin on my palm. Wait, can I see them in general? I don't possess the ability, so I'm not sure. He shrugged. My eyes lit up along with the smile that drew itself on my face. Let me try. I insisted, wiggling my eyebrows with too much joy. I think he knew himself that there was no way out of this. Okay, but be careful. He sighed, sitting up more straight. I stood up excitedly and shimmied out of the bench seat, almost getting my costume stuck against its rough texture. I walked over to him and placed my hands on his head. 3 Focus. Allow yourself to blur out your surroundings and focus only on the task at hand. He instructed carefully. I shut my eyes, seeing only darkness, no 𝗧𝗓𝗔 spots of light flashes in out from the moment that stood in front of me. The sounds of laughs and muffled talking soon filed out into a single buzz of nothingness. 8 His memories flowed around like bubbles in the wind. Figments of his childhood up to our current situation showed clear in my mind. 15 It astonished me how vivid and real they had come to me, as if they were my own. You got coffee this morning and didn't bring us any. I jeered, removing my hands from his head and glaring at him. Tomorrow, he promised, standing up. Want to try warping us back to the office? 11 Okay, but it's not my fault if we leave a limb behind or something. I grabbed his arm and closed my eyes, sending us back roughly and inelegantly. Karasu let us go after talking to us for an hour after I brought him and I back. I took a shower, putting on some random jeans and a hoodie. Making sure I grabbed my phone, I stuffed it in my pocket along with my wallet and keys. Where are you going? Senior asked from where he laid in his bed. He and I were talking normally again, almost as if our argument had never occurred. 14 Rens. I should be back in 2 hours or so. Maybe shorter depending how things go. I rolled my eyes to myself, already knowing it wasn't going to go well. 36 You're finally going to break up with him? Senior wondering, surprisingly shocked. I'm going to suspect him of cheating, which will eventually lead to an argument that breaks us up. I ran down the typical relationship break-us. So yeah. I shrugged. 73, I could give you a ride if you want. He offered, getting off the bed. 1, you can go, just take me over there. You can come back after and I'll take the train or something. I suggested, waiting as he grabbed a sweater. Just let me know. Down with whatever. He shrugged, stuffing his car keys into his pajama briefs. 9, okay. Let's go. I gestured, heading toward the door. Yeah, I'm coming. 4, call me if anything happens. Senior made me swear before leaving the car. Yeah, for sure. I smiled, nodding in confirmation. Okay, wish me luck. Love you. I got out of the car, shutting the door. Love you too. He waved, before driving off and leaving me alone in front of Ren's place. I could my breath become thinner and my stomach drop to my toes. It almost physically hurt to breathe from how nervous I was becoming, yet I pushed myself to move forward. 27, tapping my foot on the ground, I pulled out my keys that had his house spare on it. My fingers fiddled with them, shoving them softly into the keyhole so he wouldn't hear me. 32, I just had a bad feeling about this already. Once opening the door, I quietly took off my shoes and left my keys in my shoes. 3, it's fine. Everything is fine. You're fine, calm your butt down, I tried to remind myself. Overthinking would only lead to negative outcomes. 10, I hid behind the kitchen wall that stood between the two rooms before immediately recognizing the voices and giggles. 27, hey, why wasn't I invited? I sassed, walking out from behind the wall. It was exactly as I thought it would be. She was curled up against him with his arm around her shoulders. 105, there was no other was to interpret it. 1, they pushed each other off of one another, separating quickly. It was too late to try to pretend. 12, the damage had been done. Let me leave now, I demanded, avoiding eye contact with her. To even think I called her a friend for a second. 6, walking over to where she previously sat, I took the spot. Looking down at my lap, I gave myself a few moments to breath and compose. 14, my heart felt like it was sputtering out of control and my hands insisted on moving like I was freezing despite the overheating that was happening. Well, tell me. What's your excuse? I sighed, inserting my fingers into the folds of my jeans to distract myself. It's not what you think. He insisted, attempting to hold his own. 100 really? I challenged. I leaned forward and wiping the shiny substance off his lip that I caught shining in the light. Then what's this? I don't know if you remember, since you know, you have to remember info for 2 girlfriends, but I hate lip gloss. 34, stop acting like you're innocent here. He mocked, pushing my hand away. 47, acting. You're the only one here who's trying to avoid your mistake. I pointed out. What the F was that picture you sent me? You and that blonde brat in the same room. I bet you were all over him. He scoffed, trying to make a story of the photo. 50, you're the brat here. And honestly, what if I was all over him? Him. What are you going to do about it? Cheat on me? I mocked, raising my eyebrows. 15, real mature. He laughed, scornful. Unlike you, since you're acting like such a child. I yelled, becoming more frustrated. Just admit you're cheating on me. I didn't recognize the guy who was sitting in front of me. This wasn't the same guy who I fell for when we first started dating. It tore me. Why do I need to tell you if you already know? He wondered, giving me an answer without fully coming forth with the truth. Because I want to hear it coming from your mouth. Not mine. I argued, digging my fingernails into my palms. They stung the tighter I squeezed them. He leaned forward, silently looking soul deep into my eyes. I'm cheating on you. 170, and that's where it hit me. 3, the full realization and reality of it all, tumbling down on me like an avalanche that became too heavy to hold up its own weight. A pin needle stings danced across my bottom lash line, making my version blur with the liquid that I was not going to stop from falling out. 20, I turned my head, no longer able to look him in the eyes the same way I had before. I can't believe you. I whispered to myself. You should have just broken up with me when you lost feelings for me. I sighed, biting my lip as the salt flavor leaked into my mouth. But I haven't lost my feelings for you, he admitted quietly. 119 no. I scoffed, turning back to face him. That's just you feeling guilty. Feeling bad for yourself. This was the first time he had ever seen me cry. I hated crying and never wanted anyone to ever see me do it. One, it stung, gave me a headache, and made me look weak. But this one time, I was okay with it. One, I told him things I had never said out loud. Expressed my deepest and darkest thoughts that ate me up. He knew things no one but my brother had known. It's so easy to be naive when you believe someone loves you. 14, I know this is not okay, but I can fix it. He tried to convince me, taking my hand that sat on my lap. Please, I promise. 77, did you get what you wanted? I wondered, our teary eyes and crack-hearted pain looking into each other, grasping for that last thread of hope. Did she make you laugh the way you wanted? Give you the smile that felt like you hadn't done it ever in your life? When you kissed her, was it like a movie? 61, betrayal was a deep wound that could take out any open-hearted person out in seconds. I stood loyal to you and you just needed someone to be at your feet so bad that you cheated. I said what my mind had been repeating to itself over and over. It's not that. 21, then what is it? I shouted. This is the second time and you expect me just to fall in love all over again and forgive you. I may not love myself that much, but I'm not going to let you step on me like I was a bug on the floor because this is all you. I shoved my finger into his chest. You fed up this time and last and I'm not going to be here for it. 225, YN, calm down. He trailed off, seeing me break in front of his eyes. 41, I always tried to make excuses for you every time, but why am I trying to be perfect for someone who isn't even putting a single amount of effort into me? I cried, cursing at myself. Were you ever going to tell me? 10, silence. Nothing but thin, quiet white noise. Stupid. Letting myself believe that he could change was stupid. Staying for longer than I should just to go through the same CYCL. I'm sorry. A single tear fell down his eyes and it didn't compare to the amount that flowed out of my own. 54, I pulled the silver chain off my wrist and set it down on the couch. My eyes grazed it for the last time. 13, the meaning that bracelet held was gone. I don't want an apology. I just wanted real love from someone. I thought you of all people would have understood that. 19, forcing myself up, I walked out of the room, leaving him there for what would be our last conversation. I broke the promise to myself to never let myself be hurt by a guy I loved. Yet I let it happen. 2, I took the train back to the hotel. I didn't want to hear the speech from my brother. The one where he would tell me boys were going to break my heart. I wasn't going to listen. 2, I walked through the hotel hall, blankly looking at the walls as I did. No real thoughts could come to mind. I pushed them back to stop myself from crying anymore. I stopped in front of my room, reaching for the knob until I stopped. My head turned to the door a few feet away. It was 12:34 a.m. But I knew he had to be awake. 45, shifting over, my sweater-covered hand bounced on the surface of the cold wood. It only took him a few seconds to open the door. What the hell do you want now? He noticed the hoodie over my head and the mascara smeared under my eyes. Have you been crying? 63, your hair looks stupid. I commented, walking past him and into his room. It was in some sort of dorm boy style. He shut the door, this time without argument. 19, what happened? Why do you look like you walked through a DMN storm? He questioned, standing in front of where I sat on the edge of his bed. I did it. I broke up with him. 1, his face raised, surprised with how quickly events had changed within the few hours I hadn't spoke to him. I don't know what I expect since I knew he was cheating on me, but I guess I'm not as strong as I think I am. I laughed, making fun of myself. You're nowhere near emotionally strong, that's for sure. He agreed, walking over to the dresser in the room. 3, I just feel so stupid, you know. I bet you feel like that all the time though. I sighed, falling back on the bed. 1, 𝗧𝗧, being talkative for someone who got their heart broken. He mumbled, walking back to me. He threw a pair of shorts at me and a random shirt. 45, I pulled them off my face and sat back up. What's this? 7 sleep in the bed. I'll take the couch. Your brother will question the living hell about you if you go back now. He predicted, taking one of the blankets and pillows to the couch. 56 Thanks. I sniffled, rubbing my nose with my sleeve. Gross, go do that SHT in the bathroom. He grimaced, making an ugly face at me. 47 I sighed and went over, closing the door behind me. Changing quickly, I splashed cold water on my throbbing eyes. 14 My face had been stain red from the strain I had been putting on it. It was to be expected though. Leaving my hair as it was, which was pretty messy, I walked out and put my clothes on 𝗂𝗏 dresser. His clothes fit me like a dress. Smelled like him too. Caramel. Cologne. 2 scent you never would think could work together but did. 40 I didn't think you could look any worse. He mumbled from where he laid. You're so good at making me feel better. I huffed, getting into the bed. 2 Hey, mopping about it won't get you nowhere. Be glad I'm not treating you like some kid. He mocked. He was right. Mopping wasn't going to get me anywhere. Okay, fine. Good night. Night. I shut my eyes, laying there for a few minutes until it was completely silent. I reflect on the day, trying to point of the highlights. But Bakugou shuffling brought my attention back. Are you awake? I wondered, talking up to the ceiling. 8 What? He groaned, obviously annoyed. I wanted to tell you something. He stood quiet, signaling for me to continue. Don't take this weirdly, but I swear, I see you in my dreams. 119 Bakugou's eyes shook open. His heart fell into his stomach, repeating her words. 25 There was no doubt that she had just said that. It was impossible for her to lie about it. 1 Trying his best to hold him secrets wasn't his thing, for being too aggressively honest with people. He wanted to break all his promises right at that moment but didn't. But he wasn't going to lie to her either. Because that meant there was hope. 6 I see you in mine too. 156 New message, Katsuki Senator, she knows. She's remembering. Read 3:27 a.m.